Okay, this is not a ride-sharing video. I repeat, this is not a ride-sharing video. What up, folks? Once again, it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. As you see on the monitor behind me, we're going to be discussing a topic that is quite controversial. There are a lot of folks out there that are promoting this, a lot of other folks out there that are totally against this, and of course, there are many of us Americans that have no clue what this actually is. We're talking about the Convention of the States. We're going to be discussing what the hell this even means and how it could have an effect on all of our lives if this ever takes place. And of course, we're going to be talking about, or better yet, asking some of you viewers if this is something you favor. Obviously, leaning on the left side of the aisle myself, I do have some serious concerns with this. Nevertheless, there are plenty of folks on the right that believe this is the way to go for a better America. That's what we're going to be talking about. As always, the program is and forever will remain MAGA friendly. The program is MAGA friendly. My preferred guests are MAGA. Nevertheless, liberals are always welcome on the program. I always make the solemn promise that I will not ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. So if you come in the box, feel free to understand, regardless of what your opinion is, no one's going to ban, block, or censor you for it. Disagreeing with the host never means a damn thing on this program. I am certainly believing you are entitled to your free speech rights just as much as mine. So understand that. So we're talking about Convention of the States. Yours truly, your humble correspondent. I am going to admit I'm somewhat ignorant on the topic, but I'm learning more about it as we go on. Real quick, we're going to be playing some clips. This is Texas, I bet the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, explaining the Convention of the States and what it means, at least in his eyes. While I'm playing this, feel free to tap the screen. Get your boy up to 5,000 likes. You know how the program is ran. Nevertheless, here we go.
Constitutional Convention. Let's stipulate for the sake of argument that you get 34 states to petition Congress, and Congress calls the Constitutional Convention. Now, let me quote John Yoo, a lawyer at Cal Berkeley, California. Sorry about that.
Berkeley.
Quote, I support wholly the objectives behind Governor Abbott's amendments. But once a convention meets, it could propose any amendments it wants or even completely redesign the Constitution. There's nothing in the text of Article 5 that permits Congress or the states to restrict the scope of the convention. A convention, I fear, would engage in wholesale revolution, which seems to be the call in politics these days, from Trump to Sanders. Close quote.
Now, Governor Abbott is going to speak on this, but notice what the gentleman just stated, that this could become wholesale revolution. Yours truly, I actually echoed that sentiment. I believe the Convention of the States is something similar to a civil unrest, but doing it legislatively. It's very akin to, separating the states or, what do they call it? Secession from the Union, but it's being done legislatively. Because if the states are separated, you're going to have some states that are, in political terms, far to one side of the aisle or the other. So I certainly believe this could be harmful to the country. As a liberal, the Convention of the States frightens me simply because everyone that seems to be in favor of this is on the other side of the aisle. So why are there so many folks on the right in favor of Convention of the States or convening of the states, but no one on the left is? So what the hell is about it where only folks on the right seem to think it's something that is necessary? Going to go straight to the box. Appreciate you guys following the program. Real Benjamin, good evening and welcome to the program. So what do you think in regards to the Convention of the States? Are you familiar with this?
No. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm not really too familiar with the topic, but good to see you still doing your thing, handsome liberal. Go ahead and kind of give me a little rundown real quick, and I can hopefully offer you an.
Well, and I am willing to admit I'm not totally knowledgeable on it as well, but from what I've heard, it is very concerning. It is with the majority of states, I believe 36, 38 states, if they vote and they vote in favor of this, that would allow them to then begin to amend the Constitution. So if you can get 38 states to agree to vote in favor of what they would refer to as a convening of the states, convention of the states, this would allow them to then start being able to amend the Constitution. Now, if I don't know if you've seen the video I just played, but I'll bring it back up here. And according to this individual here who was talking to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, it gives the states the right to restrict the scope of the convention, or maybe the Constitution in this case. A convention, I fear, would engage in wholesale revolution, which seems to be the call in politics. Now, he's basically saying it allows you to amend the Constitution. Now, Governor Abbott follows him up, and he also agrees with that. That is what a convention of the states is all about.
Sure. Well, I think that it's always good to have a system in place to put something in the Constitution or take something out. Now, I'm more of a constitutionalist. I think that, the Constitution as we have it now uh, is almost as good as a system can possibly be. Of course, there's some things that need to be changed because, after all, it was created in the 1700s. But I think that because it requires 35 states to agree on something, and you would need it would have to be a very moderate thing to put in. You're not going to have somebody put in the Constitution, of course, that people can carry RPGs or anything crazy. I think that if it's an actual issue that, the majority of Americans are concerned about and it's very reasonable on both sides, I think if it takes 35 votes, or 35 states, that's not a bad.
Well, but why do you believe that everybody that seems to be in favor of this is on the right side of the aisle, whereas there's nobody on the left? I mean, what is it that they
That's
want to amend in the Constitution so bad?
Right, that's very interesting because it's usually the left side that wants to change the existing things that are in place. I think that maybe they're gearing up to put certain things in the Constitution, like the classification that gender and sex are the same thing, or maybe that women and men have to play in separate sports, things like that. Um, I don't know though. I mean, you could really speculate because nothing's really being said. I guess we'd have to just wait and see. But everyone should probably be rest assured that nothing radical on one side or the other will ever really be able to be pushed through because you need the majority of the states to do so. 35
Yeah,
states.
but that's isn't that kind of the same song and dance in regards to Roe versus Wade? People said you shouldn't be worried. It's already been litigated. It's already been determined legislation. Yet here we are.
Right, but in order for something like that to be changed, you'd have to have a demographic of states like California or Oregon completely shift the opposite way to get that state. I mean, you can use Roe versus Wade as an example, but the Supreme Court will always have new justices put in place depending on the current president, and certain laws can be overturned. But in order to amend the Constitution, you would need to theoretically have an entire state completely go the other way, like California or Maine or something like that, and it would have to be a majority, right? So the Republicans, if they were really ever trying to amend the Constitution and put something in that, for example, people like yourself on the left wouldn't want, it's very unlikely. It's probably almost impossible for it to happen because you need those 35 states. So I get what you're saying with Roe v. Wade. People didn't think it would happen, but there's a higher chance that something like Roe v. Wade could be overturned or put back in place because of how the Supreme Court works and when presidents are put into power, they can nominate people compared to needing 35 states to agree to amend
But
or.
I get your point that it is highly unlikely to get 35 states to agree on the same thing, but isn't this something to be concerned with if that hurdle was met?
Well, you got to remember though, right? So changing the Constitution, depending on what it is, or adding something in, isn't that what your side kind of wants to push for in a lot of ways? I mean, I feel that the left primarily wants to amend the Constitution and change certain things like remove the Second Amendment because their main position is that it was a time where we had muskets and extremely non lethal weapons to participate with in mass shootings if one were to do
Yeah,
that.
well, wait. See, I get your point, and I agree with you that the left has certainly called for changes to the Constitution. But you got to understand, I'm not coming at this from a left or a right perspective. I'm saying if
I, I
anyone can change the Constitution, isn't that something to be concerned with?
I don't think it's something to be concerned with because I don't think that the Constitution will be amended. I really don't. I think that it's so
Okay.
unlikely. Not in our lifetimes. Not in our children. I'm
Well,
20s.
and I hear you, but I just, because I've heard people say that Roe versus Wade wouldn't get turned back. Now that it has, where you're saying, well, yeah, they meant that hurdle, but this is a bigger hurdle, so don't worry about this one. But they were telling us the exact same thing about Roe versus Wade.
Right. As somebody on the left leaning side, let's theoretically say for the argument that something in the Constitution was able to be put into place because 35 Republican states or some states went red and they had the majority. What would be your biggest fear that the Republicans would push for to either put in the Constitution or take out?
Well, I'm not a fan of a federal abortion ban that allows you to execute women, for instance, that have an abortion. That's one that I'm not a fan of. Um, there's a few of them that I'm not a fan of. I mean, some of the things that you're seeing, like for instance, I don't want interracial marriage, for instance, to be taken out. There's certain
Right.
things like that. I don't like what they're doing to the LGBT community. I don't necessarily like some of the things that they're proposing from the far right stuff, not center right, but stuff on the far right.
I see. I think that right now, at least as a conservative, a young conservative in the United States today, the things that I personally care about, and I think that young conservatives mostly care about at this current point in time, would just be I don't know, less power to the federal government. I mean, I'm personally I'm pro life, but that because the Republican Party is actually a lot more divided than you'd think, because you have the older people in there who are more focused on the economics, and then you have the evangelicals who are the religious portion, and then you have, the Republicans that really don't care about social issues that are sort of libertarian in a sense, but are more focused on, foreign relations and stuff. You wouldn't be able to get the majority of Republicans to get on board with some of the things that you put in, because one part of the argument, like you're suggesting, is the evangelicals, which is actually a minority now in the Republican Party. And then in regards to
I
like
mean,
the
what about a federal abortion ban? If for instance we were to get 38 states or whatever the hell it is, and they were states that were more leaning right, is leaning towards the right wing. Do you see a federal abortion ban as possible?
the only sort of federal abortion ban that I could ever see being put into place would be a federal abortion ban. However, the only way they would be able to get it passed is if they agreed to allow an abortion due to a health issue or a rape
Yeah, but
issue
that's
or
not
anything.
the question I'm asking you. I'm asking you if they were to successfully be able to call into play a convention of the states, do you think they would pursue a federal abortion ban?
I do. But I don't think that the reason that I said that is I don't think that the public would be too outraged about it, because the only way that that would be able to happen, and the biggest concern, in my opinion, on the left side of the argument is they want women to have access to an abortion in case there's a medical issue or in case it's rape or incest. Now, that's 1% of abortions, but that's their primary leading argument. So I think that that would be the only way, if it ever were to happen, that it would happen, which I would be for.
All right. All right, fair enough. And that is what we fear, is that we know that if this happens with folks on the right side of the aisle, they're going to be for like what you're talking about. Most of the things that we fear, most of the right side of the aisle would be for this stuff, up to and including in some cases the execution of a woman that wants to have an abortion. There are folks that are calling for that.
Yeah, I that will never. I'll tell you something right now. That just won't get passed. Nobody would call for the execution of an abortion. Um, that's just too far right and too extreme. But I'll ask you one more question because I know you have other guests, and
Sure.
I'm asking this question because I want to understand. I'm not trying to say that my argument's better or my position's better, but I'm wanting to understand your side and sort of the people that align with you.
Sure.
What is the issue with outlawing an abortion? Um, how do I say this? What's the issue with making it that abortion is illegal except under very specific circumstances like rape, incest, medical issue, etc.? Why is it that adoption or things like that are completely off the table? Because I understand the concern of, those 1% of abortions that take place, but why not give the child the opportunity to grow up and somehow prosper? I mean, I feel like it's taking away an opportunity. So that's my question. I think.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you an answer, and I want to play this clip as well. But I'll tell you right off the bat, we view abortion the same way you view gun legislation. We do believe it's kind of one of those give an inch, they'll take a mile. We believe that if you get some legislation or some limitations, you're going to go towards a complete ban. But I want you to hear this, and I'll let you get the last word. But I want you to hear this clip.
Monday, a bill in Colombia could make the death penalty a possible punishment for women in South Carolina who get an abortion.
News 13's Claire Purnell is live in our newsroom with what the bill changes and also reactions tonight from Planned Parenthood. Claire?
Bob and Megan, if this bill is passed, the new bill would make getting an abortion equivalent to committing homicide. House Bill 3549, or the South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023, was introduced to the State House last week by Representative Rob Harris of Spartanburg County. The bill was pre-filed back in December and is still sitting in the Judiciary Committee. Representative Harris says he moved to replace the Human Life Protection Act with the South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023.
What I did the other day is I took the opportunity while the rest of the House was dealing with H 3774, a Human Life Protection Act, a different bill. I put the first amendment on that bill when we were processing it on the floor, and I tried to amend it to basically strike the whole thing and replace it with my bill.
The bill aims to amend the South Carolina Code of Laws by adding sections that would define a person to include an unborn child at any stage of development, and to ensure that an unborn child who is a victim of homicide is afforded equal protection under the state's homicide laws. Vicki Ringer, Director of Public Affairs of Planned Parenthood South Atlantic, reacted to this amendment.
So how do you feel about that? Now, they're clearly passing a bill that would allow a mother to potentially face an execution.
I guess the way that I would respond to that is I think states that are more evangelical and far right leaning, like South Carolina or like Texas, I think that might actually go through. But I think that states like Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, the majority of red states probably won't agree to that. And I'm not too familiar with the bill, but if the death penalty is on the table for illegal abortion, like in South Carolina, I would assume, though, that if they went to another state to get that abortion and they returned to South Carolina, the death penalty would not apply.
Well, in regards to that, this one is a little bit shorter, but I have to give you the former vice president because he speaks on what you're talking about.
I did not come here today to speak about popular opinion or jurisprudence. I came here today to speak about right and wrong. To say life is a human right and urge the Supreme Court of the United States to choose life.
Now, this is before Roe versus Wade was rolled back.
We may well be on the verge of an era when the Supreme Court sends Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history where it belongs. Tomorrow, our Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. The case will decide the constitutionality of a Mississippi law that bans most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. We are asking the court in no uncertain terms to make history. We are asking the Supreme Court of the United States to overturn Roe v. Wade and restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law. And we are...
Now, he says center of American law. I could play the full clip, but nowhere in this does he say states' rights. So when you talk about going to a different state and having an abortion there, the point I'm trying to make is the goal is to do this nationwide. I mean, that is the former VP saying that. So what happened in North Carolina, while you're suggesting it might be a far-right state, here's literally the second man in charge of the last administration making it clear. And he's also a candidate for president now. Nobody expects him to win, but he is a current candidate for president, making it clear he wants to do this nationwide. He's not talking states' rights anywhere in here.
Well, I guess I'm going to respond to this as intelligently as I can. You got to understand that the majority of Republicans view abortion because, of course, we are under the opinion that life begins at conception. So we
Right.
do view um, the killing of a child. However, most young people like myself understand certain situations. Now, in that particular clip, he's talking about outlawing Roe v. Wade, and I guess your fear is, and why you're playing that video is you're afraid that the majority of the states that are controlled by the right are going to make it the death penalty involved if you get an abortion. But I guess I would,
Well,
I
let me, and the reason I'm telling you that, like when you asked the question in the beginning, I stated it's just like the gun debate where you believe you don't want any gun legislation because you believe give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That's what we believe when we hear some of you folks suggesting that you want to murder the mom that does this. We believe if we give you an inch, you're going to take a mile.
where I personally stand, and I think a lot of people feel this way. I think that an AR-15, this is my personal view. I don't think an AR-15 should be obtainable until the age of 25. I do think a handgun should be obtainable at the age of 18. It's interesting to me that you can obtain an AR-15 at the age of 18, but not a handgun. But I do,
Yeah.
because this can go back and forth. Some people say that if you took away all guns, there would be no uh, no shootings or no mass shootings. But then, of course, I would pull up the statistics in the UK with knives and swords. I personally think that if everybody carried a handgun, mass shootings wouldn't exist because the mass shooters are going into places where there are no guns. And of course, they're obtaining those AR-15s legally, they're buying them, whatever. But mass shooters are going to places where they feel safe, where they feel that they have all the power, where they feel that they will not be interfered with, at least for
But if what you're saying is true, then why do cops get shot? They all carry guns.
well, when it comes to cops being killed, I'm pretty sure I can't pull up the statistics for you, but I'm pretty sure that they're killed by gangs and criminals and armed robbers. And
Okay.
majority of
Okay.
those people obtain those weapons illegally. Now, mass shooters obtain their weapons legally. The statistic is there. They usually go out and buy the gun. But when it comes to gun violence, separate from mass shooters, armed robberies, drive-by shootings, and gang violence, those weapons are usually obtained illegally with the serial number scratched off, and those weapons are manufactured in Brazil. There's a
But you
tremendous
said there would be no mass casualty events if everybody carried a gun. My point is this: the folks that are committing these events, most of them die in the process, so they already know they're leaving behind suicide letters. So they already know when they go into this, even if they go to a
yeah,
gun-free zone, they are aware that guns are going to show up there very quickly. So
right.
they don't expect to live through it anyway.
I understand that, but they expect to go into a gun-free area and commit as much violence and terror as possible.
Okay.
I mean, if we think about it, right, people who commit armed robbery, they're going in with a weapon because they're under the impression that the people that they're robbing aren't able to defend themselves. Gang violence, for example, drive-by shootings, they roll up on people that have what they would come under the impression aren't carrying guns, and they take them by the element of surprise, et cetera. So I think that, like, if I watched a video on a school, I believe it's in Georgia, where the teachers carry weapons, and they interviewed all the students, prominently a black school. The students were interviewed, and they said, "Yeah, we feel much safer. The teachers have their handguns in safes, and everybody's really for it." So I think that gun violence will occur very, very minimum if more people carried handguns. I mean, sure, it would still happen, but it maybe go on for 5-10 seconds, and then all of a sudden everybody pulls out a gun and it stopped. And no one's going to walk into a gas station where everybody has handguns on and try to commit an
Yeah,
armed robbery.
I mean, I've seen people try to rob gun stores. I gotta totally disagree, but I do gotta move it on, man. I appreciate you coming in here.
Sure.
All right,
Have,
Real Benjamin.
have a good one, my friend. Good to
Hey,
talk
you
to you.
too. Anytime. Always come on back to anytime. For some reason, the box funny, but we'll keep it moving. Teachers are not cautious enough. What does that say? Teachers are not cautious enough to keep a gun in schools. Well, and that's what I believe personally is that when we view a school where the personnel are carrying firearms as being safer for children, we view it on the best case scenario. If a assailant comes in, the teachers will be able to protect themselves. They all will have perfect shots. They'll all be feeling very brave that day. Their aim will be on and they'll be ready to go. And if that is the case, then yes, that is true. Having firearms in schools will make the students safer. But when we think about this stuff, we never factor in Ubalde or Parkland, where armed folks were scared to get in the gun battle, or Buffalo at the supermarket, where an off-duty cop engaged the shooter that happened to be wearing body armor, and he took out the off-duty police officer. None of that's factored in when we figure out what's going to happen if we give teachers firearms. We do it on a best-case scenario, so it always works. But in reality, you don't know what may happen. The teacher may have a poor aim and hit some of the students. You don't know for all of a sudden that because the folks that are committing these crimes are often doing it to the schools they used to attend, they know all the procedures that they're going to be dealing with, up to and probably and including the teachers that are actually carrying the firearms. So they would potentially take them out first. None of that stuff is factored in. We assume best case scenario that the good guy is always going to win. And also, obviously, mental illness is a huge problem in this country. And no one ever considers what happens if the teacher has a mental illness episode in class because the students are getting out of hand. That's never taken into consideration. It's just all best case scenario. So it works. I can understand why it works. Looking in the comments, we still have racist teachers who may look for an excuse. Wow, T-Dog. I hope not, but is that a possibility? Yeah. I see videos on YouTube of teachers fighting with students all the time. Some of the teachers are actually getting their asses beat. Put a firearm into that scenario, and either the student or the teacher now is going to lose their life. It goes from an ass beating to a potential deadly conflict. I think all it takes is one bad event, and you're going to have parents like, I don't want my child going to school with a firearm. If it always ends with the good guy taking out the bad guy, it sounds great. But that's just simply not how life works. Bad guys lose all the time. And it's not uncommon for good guys, as we've seen in the news lately, knocking on the wrong door, pulling in the wrong driveway, a basketball goes on the lawn. It's not uncommon for alleged good guys to act proactively and take out somebody that does not deserve to be taken out. You think that can't happen? If you start handing firearms to teachers, you think everything's just going to go perfect. I don't think so. Looking in the comments, teachers don't want guns in school. I do believe most teachers are not a fan of it, but I could be wrong. Let's keep it moving. And I muse. Good evening, and I muse. Appreciate you folks that have been holding on. Tap the screen. Get your boy at the 15,000. I will give the spiel. The program is MAGA friendly. It always will be. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. I don't block or ban anyone for their commentary, so understand it. And I muse. Good evening.
Hello, my name's Andy. It's nice to meet you.
Okay,
I just wanted them to
you.
understand that when they ban abortion so strictly, that 10 to 20% of all pregnancies of all women end in miscarriage. And like there was a lady who was recently in it was either Florida or Texas, and her water broke. And because the baby was still moving around, they couldn't take it. It wasn't going to live. It wasn't viable. She had to end up giving birth to it in the bathroom and almost hemorrhaging. And
so
this is what's going to go on when doctors are too afraid.
She went to seek medical help. She went to seek medical help, but because the baby, in an unviable fashion, was still alive, they basically sent her away.
Yes.
Wow. Which could have been harmful to her as well. Could have been seriously harmful to her.
Right. They're afraid that women are going to die of sepsis in this country at alarming numbers. And nobody seems to care. Now these people are arguing with me about this, the percentage of miscarriages, but I mean, you can get it from the Mayo Clinic, the March of Dimes. I gave it the low end of 10%, but they say it could be up to 20% of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. Doctors are too afraid to touch women. They are calling their lawyers because they don't want to suffer the penalties of law that may be placed upon them if they help these women.
Wow.
So women who weren't going out to get an abortion or weren't trying to do anything but have a healthy baby are now in danger.
I heard there was some area where doctors were no longer delivering babies for exactly what you said, is that the level of accountability towards them is very similar to some police officers suggesting that they're being held to such a high account they no longer want to be a police officer. Well, this is starting to happen in terms of the medical professions, is where they're saying that, yeah, if we got a patient that may lose their life or have their life in jeopardy, and these laws are preventing us from, basically performing a pregnancy termination. I don't want no part of this. And I've heard in some areas, doctors are not even performing, they're not dealing with childbirth at all anymore.
Yeah, some hospitals are actually closing the OBGYN unit. I'm not misrepresenting my facts. It's very easy to look up.
Go ahead.
If you go in and you're suffering from sepsis, and like some of them don't, like a lady even asked in one of the hearings for Congress, well, can't you take an ectopic pregnancy and retransplant it? No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and that's the
And
problem, is that some of the folks passing laws on this stuff, just like, and I compare it to the gun debate all the time, because I think what liberals are doing with guns is very similar, where you got folks who want to ban guns that know nothing about guns. And that's the same thing here, like you mentioned with the ectopic pregnancy, is that you got folks that are trying to ban abortion, and they have no idea how a woman's body works. I think
you
it's very
saying that's
similar.
old data, this hoax guy that keeps coming up here, he was the one arguing with me in the comments earlier. How is it a hoax that 10% of all pregnancies, and I'm like I said, I'm on the low end because the Mayo Clinic and the March of Dimes says it can be up to 20%. How can that possibly be old data? That's how biology of a woman's body works.
Yeah.
It
Well, listen, I'm not doubting your data, because we all know about the case of the 10-year-old that was assaulted in Ohio and had to drive all the way to
yes.
Indiana because the kid was pregnant. So there are real cases here that I'm aware of without having, if you're doubting her case, it's not the only one. That's the problem. There are more cases. There was a case of a woman in Louisiana that had a child that was missing its skull, and they wouldn't terminate it because it was still alive, but it was completely unviable. So
Right.
your
And they
case
want to
is
get
not
rid of
the only
Social
one.
Security and Medicaid and any help for these families, but they're going to be raising all these children that have so many developmental diseases that they're not going to be capable of taking care of themselves. And then you have the ones who they call incompatible with life, which
Yeah.
means they'll be born, but they can't stay alive on their own. And they're going to suffer in agony
Mm.
until they pass of their own volition. And to me, that is cruel beyond measure.
Yeah. Well, let me present it to you this way, because I think the numbers suggest about 750,000 abortions are performed in this country every year. If we are able to successfully drop that down, let's say to maybe half that number, do you think this country can easily absorb 350,000 children that are being born to moms that don't want them? So many of these are going to go into foster care system. That's certainly entitlements all written all over. They're not all going to be adopted. Anybody
Right.
who believes they're all going to be adopted is crazy. I mean, do you think there's going to be an issue before long where we're going to start really attacking moms that are irresponsibly having these children now that they can't get rid of them?
Well, they're already telling mothers that you can't work and raise children, but there's no consequences for the man that leaves the woman who's raising the child. I
Mm,
mean, they were putting men in jail for not paying child support. That doesn't happen hardly anymore. I mean, it's
yeah.
like they're taking away all the protections and then saying you're forced to have this child, and they don't care at all that the people that are hurt aren't the ones that are going to get an abortion. It's the innocent mother who wanted a child whose body may not can take it. It didn't connect right. The baby's not developing the way it should. And these are the people that they're hurting. Like, I'm not against an abortion ban at a certain stage of the zygote turn, and even the church is no longer opposed to it after they've seen what happened.
Yeah, and I
I
think,
mean, when you got
yeah,
the
I
Pope saying,
believe.
"Oh, hold up,"
Yeah, I believe the reasons that Roe versus Wade became the law of the land, because obviously most of America's history, it was against the law to terminate a pregnancy. The reasons that they decided to allow a woman to do that, it's crazy to believe that those reasons are not going to come back. The same issues that we had with women being forced to carry babies they didn't want, that stuff's going to come back. I just don't
do you
understand why
know
people
why
don't
we're
realize
doing
it.
this? Okay,
Hmm?
do you know that one of our forefathers, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, in a colony book that he wrote about the how-tos of the American colonies, actually there's a recipe in there for an abortion.
A
Um,
recipe?
yes, because they used to use herbal remedies back in the day, remember?
Mm.
So one of our forefathers, actually, in one of the pioneer how-to books, that's included. Now, that's why it was so hard when I was like, the Supreme Court said there's not a history of this and he goes back to the man who burned witches and not our actual forefathers. So we had a crisis of not having enough population. And so, that was a big push for women not to have abortions. Well, um, in the 50s, when I hate to say this, but when the Baptist Church was on board with it and Nixon was on board for the abortion ban, and Nixon actually is caught on tape saying it's because we don't want interracial children.
Mm. So
And one of
do
his
you see
associates says, and rape. And Nixon goes, oh, and rape. But
racism, intolerance? Do you see that having any part of this, the way we're
I
dealing
think
with
that white
abortion?
people are afraid that they will not be the majority in 2045.
So they're literally forcing women to have more white babies?
Um, let's put it this way. The church has been working on this for the last 50 years, and they're on record, you know, more black women die in childbirth than white women. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Alarmingly so.
What you said?
It's
Wait, you said
the
more white
numbers are
women?
astronomical.
You
I
said
talk to
more
my
white.
black girlfriends, and I am amazed at how bad health care they get when it comes to
Okay.
prenatal, and it that's when people say systemic racism don't exist. I laugh and go, "That's why the white guy gets drug court and the black guy gets jail." Yeah,
Mm. Okay, fair enough. I've never heard this before, so you
but
definitely are
yes,
telling me.
when
Now, go ahead.
people of color get less medical attention.
Oh, that I
I
know.
mean,
Yeah, that I know.
and so the mortality rate for them is a much higher. So with
Okay.
these
All
new
right. Okay.
abortion
Okay.
bills,
I get it now. Yeah, I didn't hear you at
they're
first. That makes
sentencing
sense.
large swaths of women to taking care of children that are going to be deformed. Not only that, of miscarriages where they could get sepsis and don't even make it.
Yeah.
And that is
Well,
something that nobody in these laws talk about. They argue back and forth about the abortion issue, but they're not taking into consideration, when it's going to be, what happens when it's their wife who has a miscarriage and can't get the help she needs. Because the abortion procedure just means to terminate a pregnancy prematurely. It doesn't necessarily mean what they say it means.
well,
Um,
maybe they'll say the child has bone spurs or something and find a way to go to Canada. I got to move it on though, Andy.
um, can I tell you one
Oh,
last thing about the abortion thing before I go?
real quick, go wrap it up. Go ahead.
If they would like just say 15 weeks or 20 weeks and try to meet people in the middle, I could be behind that. But
You're
we're
okay with
going to have
15
whole
weeks?
segments of the
You're okay with
population.
15 weeks?
Hmm?
You're okay with a ban at 15 weeks?
Well, I mean, 24 is actually my preference, but I've never been pregnant, so I wasn't capable of getting pregnant. So I don't want to speak on all these women, but I do think, you need to know that you have time to need to know that you're pregnant. And I think that if the child is not going to be born, compatible with life, that they need to
Yeah,
make
I get it.
determinations.
Yeah,
One size don't fit all is what I'm trying to say.
I totally agree. All right, I got to
And
move it on,
they use
Andy.
the Bible, but the Bible says thou shalt not kill. So why do they need guns if they can't have it both ways?
Different argument, but I understand. Come on back through. Looking in the comments, common sense laws, 15 weeks is what the whole world works on. Well, in regards to the 15 weeks, we'll go to a quick clip before I go right back on into the box, because there is someone calling for 15 weeks. And, well, since you brought it up, here you go.
If Republicans take back control of Congress come November, Senator Lindsey Graham is promising to hold a vote on a federal, nationwide abortion ban. No abortions in the country after 15 weeks, with exceptions for rape and incest, or if it's necessary to save the life of the mother.
Now, my last caller, now she said 24 weeks is where she want to go, but I mean, does it sound like my last caller may be supporting Lindsey Graham? I'm going to assume the answer is no, but Lindsey Graham, there you go, a federal abortion ban. But he is giving you 15 weeks. The problem is some women don't know it 15 weeks. Most do, I would assume. Listen, I'm a man, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what the hell's going on with a woman's body. I'm pro-choice all the way, but do most women know it 15 weeks? Would that cover it? Looking in the comments, this was always the intention. Once national, they will lower the amount of weeks. BGST, as I stated before, and I'll go right back to the box, I do believe the way the right views abortion is very similar to the way the left views gun control. I do believe on both sides of the aisle, trying to keep it fair, that if you allow them some leeway into limiting, whether it's the right to have an abortion or the right to own a firearm, it will expand. I do believe that. There's no way in hell I believe that if the liberals, us on the left, are allowed to ban assault rifles, that we would stop at that. Because if you can ban assault rifles and bring the numbers down, what's the next smartest or next most intelligent course of action? Well, what else can we ban to bring the numbers down even more? Well, the same thing's going to apply with abortion. If you get a 15-week abortion and you start saving the lives of children, which is the way they view abortion, is saving the life of children, what's the next logical step? 14 weeks, 13 weeks, 12 weeks, because you are saving more children. Keep in mind, although both of these issues are polar opposite on either side of the aisle, both sides believe they are doing something that saves lives. The liberals believe limiting gun ownership in this country would save a hell of a lot of lives, and folks on the right believe the same thing in regards to abortion. The opposing side on both sides can point to ways this won't save lives, but yet it will ruin lives. But they both are doing something that they believe is morally just to save lives. This is what it's all about when you can see both sides of the aisle and not just your own politics. By the way, folks, if this is what you enjoy, civilized dialogue without any fear of censorship or being banned, I implore you to follow the program. Helps out the algorithms and all of that good stuff. What do I always say? The program is and shall remain in its entirety MAGA friendly, but liberals are welcome as well. So understand that. And we don't block, ban, or censor anyone. The fact that you might disagree with the host never means a damn thing here. I'm going to go to the box. We'll keep it moving with I can't pronounce it right, but it says it's me. It's me. Good evening.
Hello.
Welcome to the program. Hey, we're talking about a convention of the states. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I have. It's also called the Constitutional Convention.
Do you favor it?
No, I do not, because the people that really started the original talking about this recently is Dark Money, the Koch brothers, well, Koch brother now, um, and people like Crow. And I just, no, it'll rip our country apart, because if we did have a constitutional convention, states could leave the union if they wanted to. And I believe if some of the states left the union, that would start a civil war.
Mm. Well, let's say, for instance, Texas, which has flirted with leaving the union for eons. If they decided to leave the union, how do you think, what would be the grounds of starting a military conflict in this country, or a violent conflict?
I don't know, but that would put them on their own. What's going to
Yeah.
happen if Mexico decides they want to attack Texas, or
Good
what's going to
point.
happen if another country decides they want to attack Texas? They're no
That is a
longer
good
going to be
point.
part of the United States. The United States military wouldn't be able to back them up. Right now, what we're supposed to have is a union, and it's supposed to be each state makes their laws see fit as they see fit for their own people.
Yeah. I think in regards to what you were talking about, if a state's on their own, yeah, because like for instance, right now you got the Ukrainian Russian conflict. And when you look at political parties, one side tends to favor Russia and the other side is favoring the Ukraine. If we had some type of separation in this country, some states would be favoring Russia and some states would be favoring the Ukraine. And that could obviously lead to fighting here because if I'm Russia, I'm going to try to do things with the states that favor me here to maybe start giving them weapons, maybe even try to put a base or some shit here, whatever the case may be, which is exactly what America does overseas, is that when we got part of a country that favors us, we get involved in their conflict. And so, obviously, if we started having that problem here, yeah, I could see countries like Russia starting to get involved in what's going on here.
Yeah, and like I said, the original people who got that start talking about the Constitutional Convention is really Dark Money, because they want to change it for their own personal reasons, you know. And
Is there anything you fear, any type of laws or legislation you fear that we could face if this is successfully implemented?
well, they could implement whatever they wanted. They could implement, um, they could go against interracial marriage, gay marriage. And see, that's my afraid. If they go after abortion, the next thing is going to be when they start attacking people's freedoms, liberal freedoms like that. That the next thing is going to be they're going to go after, gay marriage. Then they're going to go after interracial marriage. And it just, I think that people need to be able to be free. This is the United States.
Yeah. I don't, is it possible that this could ever happen from a left wing perspective?
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
the biggest thing
I
is
don't see
to,
it.
to,
The
to
left
do a
doesn't.
constitutional convention, you have to have 2/3 of the states,
Right.
and I don't think you'll ever get 2/3 of the states to agree on anything,
Yeah.
you know?
So what
I
are the
mean,
chances you think this could happen? 30, what is it, 38 states are needed or something like that? 36, 38 states. What are the chances you think they could successfully even do this?
I don't think they could. I don't think they could
Yeah.
get, like I said, I don't think those many states could get that anything together. They can't get together for anything right now.
Yeah.
No
Let
one
me
can
ask
agree
you
on
this because
anything right now is the problem. No
let
one
me let
can
me run
agree to disagree anymore.
yeah, let me run this by you because I did a poll and see how I don't know if you've seen the poll, but this is in relations to what my last caller that was on Andy, where she's talked about in regards to rolling back Roe versus Wade. She believed that whites in particular are afraid of becoming a minority, so they're essentially passing laws to make so that women produce more white children. Now, I asked a comment, or Betty, I did a poll titled, Are Whites Afraid of Becoming the Minority? Do you feel that there's any possibility of this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen it. My lifelong friend of mine won't talk to me anymore because he supports Trump, and he said I couldn't understand because my family was mixed, and my
Oh,
wife's Filipino. My wife's Filipino, so my kids
right.
are mixed, and my sister's half black. And
So
so
what do
he
you
said,
think? What do you think he was
he said I
suggesting you
couldn't
don't
understand.
understand? What do you think he was
He said,
suggesting that you don't understand?
well, he said that everybody was picking on them, and that they were being demonized and
Picking
just
on
made to
who?
look bad.
Picking on
No
white
matter what
people?
it was, they were being made. They were middle. Your average white person was just being made to look bad constantly as the bad guy. They're always being
Oh,
portrayed as the bad guy, and he
so he
felt picked
believes.
on. And he said,
Here's
"You can't understand because your family's mixed." I haven't talked to him since.
wow. He's not. I hear that quite often that people do believe whites in modern America are being, subject to victims of racism and things like that and being ostracized. Now, in regards to that poll, I got to move it on, but in regards to that poll, now you said you do believe that there is a issue with people being afraid of becoming a minority, white people. The poll, 74.14% of the people agree with you. So only 25% of the folks that are currently watching me believe that whites are not afraid of becoming a minority. So at least in this group,
Oh,
there
this
seems
is why they're trying
to
to
be a
do
lot of people
everything
who
like
agree
they
with
did
you.
in Tennessee. Tennessee is the perfect example.
Mm.
What happened in Tennessee to those two state members in the House is a perfect example
Oh wow,
of,
yeah,
of,
yeah. I
of
don't, I don't get why they would.
they
Yeah, I
let
don't
their
get
true
why they
colors
would do
come
that.
flying.
Yeah, I don't get
They
why they
let
would
their
do
true
that because it
colors
was
come
pretty
flying.
easy for the people to come back.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they just did it because the speaker did it because they were black. That's
Well,
the
they
only reason,
claim,
because
of
of the
course,
color of their skin.
of course, they claim that wasn't the reason. But fair enough. I got to
All
move it on. I appreciate you coming in here, though.
right, man. All right.
Good talk.
Have a good day. Thank you for
Absolutely. You
having me
too.
in.
Hey,
All right.
anytime. Come on back anytime. All right. In the comments, Article 5 of the Constitution, I believe that's what this is, isn't it? Article 5, where this would allow the Convention of the States would allow changes to the Constitution. Now, earlier I was playing a clip with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. So I wanted to follow that up because Greg Abbott, who's obviously a staunch Republican, supports this, and he kind of gives an explanation.
Which seems to be the call in politics days from Trump to Sanders, close quote. A runaway convention. Two things. Let's work on nomenclature first. And that is, you said a constitutional convention. A constitutional convention is separate from a convention of states. We're not calling for a constitutional convention where we rewrite the Constitution. We're being very specific here about a convention of states to propose amendments to the Constitution. So they're not talking about changing the Constitution entirely. They're talking about adding amendments. How is that any different? The original Constitution did not give you the right to bear arms. An amendment gave you the Second Amendment. That's a huge change. You can leave the Constitution the way it is and make amendments and change the hell out of it. What is he talking about? That is the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. You're watching there on the screen, but how is he suggesting that by adding amendments, you're not changing the Constitution? You don't need to change the original document if you can add amendments. You could change the meaning of phrases like murder and freedom and slavery. I mean, you don't need to change it if you're allowed to amend it. To me, it sounds like exactly what Christine77 is saying in the comments. He thinks we're stupid. I mean, this sounds like trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And all of a sudden, they're making these huge changes, and you find yourself thinking, well, when I agreed to this, I didn't think they could. They weren't saying. They said they weren't going to get rid of the Constitution. I never thought they could do this or do that or prevent them from doing this. It's an amendment. Think about the amendments we have. Hell, getting rid of slavery was done with an amendment. It didn't change the Constitution, but look at how huge that was for African Americans. It wasn't done by changing the Constitution. It was done via an amendment. So he's trying to make it sound like he's trying to downplay the importance of an amendment. But any of you folks who follow history, whether it's the First Amendment, freedom of speech, the right to remain silent, the Fifth Amendment, all of those are amendments. They didn't change the Constitution. They added those things, and look how huge they have been to us.
Demanding that a police have a warrant before they come in your house, that's the Fourth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment prevents them from putting soldiers in your house. Those are amendments. Those are not changes. He's trying to make it sound like amendments are not that big. Don't be fooled by this. This is crazy. All right, going back to the box. We'll keep it moving. Okay, old timer, certainly a friend of the program. Somebody asked the question, what do they want to change? RSF, that's the problem. You don't know, and I would implore you to not believe what you're being told. You won't know what they want to change until this is right up on you and they're making changes. So don't believe anything they tell you in the beginning. Okay, old timer, what do you think? Convention of the States.
The Convention of the States and the Convention of the Constitution are completely different. I mean, the Convention of the States is where the states unanimously agree to add amendments to the Constitution that would otherwise be overlooked or not ratified by Congress through that process that needed to be put in. Oh, hell, I don't know. I just understand the concept of it. But there were a lot of amendments that have been proposed to Congress over the years that they never ratified into law and never put in the Constitution. So the Convention of the States will add those in, but it takes nothing away from the verbiage into predetermined ratified articles of the Constitution or any previous amendments. They can't go back and change. They can't go back and change wording in anything that's already established and written.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think that the overwhelming majority of people supporting this come from the right and none are from the left? If it's what you're saying and it's not as harmful as you make it sound, why is it only being supported by one side of the aisle?
Well, the same reason everything is supported by one side or the other side. It's the depiction of how the news reports it. It's what they call left-wing news is going to report what left-wing wants to hear, and right-wing news is going to report what right-wing wants to hear, and they're going to put a bad light on the other side just to keep the ratings up.
But what about the people that would actually be responsible for making the changes, whether it's liberal politicians or conservative politicians? They're not going by the news. They would be the ones that would be allowed to make the changes, even at the political level. The only politicians supporting this are right-wingers. You don't hear any left-wing governors or senators in favor of this. Why is that?
Well, one of the reasons, because left-wing doesn't, from my perception, okay, and understand everybody's perception of things is their reality. From my perception, all we hear about the Democrat side of things is that those places that are Democrat controlled are run down and they're not managed, and there's no conservatism of natural resources or anything like that. And it's keep people down and keep them in the system. And where the right side of the aisle, what I get reports on is they're trying to get less government involvement, and they're trying to open up the rights of the states more, because the federal government was originally set up to just be a liaison between the states and foreign countries for the purpose of trade.
Okay.
And over the years, they've made the government a big business.
But wait a minute. If you're talking about the right is for smaller government and the left is for bigger government, why do you have folks on the right calling for a national abortion ban? Or you got Trump suggesting he's going to ask Congress to clarify what gender is and only make it so it's two genders? That's big government. That is expanding government. That's not states. They're talking about doing this stuff federally.
Well, that's an individual's opinion, and once they get in, they can propose it. It doesn't mean it's going to get passed.
You think if Trump got elected and he proposed to make gender at a federal level only two genders, you think folks on the right would be against that at all?
Yeah, a lot of them would be on the right. I mean, if you consider me right or conservative or whatever it is, what business is it of mine how people want to live their lives? I don't care how people live their lives. I just want to live mine and enjoy my kids and grandkids and go fishing.
So you I want you to hear this, and you let me know if it came down to a vote to you, how would you vote? I want you to hear this.
As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they...
How would you vote for that?
How would I vote for? Well, one aspect of me will go to genetic science and vote yes, and the other aspect of me will go to however you want to live and vote no. I'd have to cross that bridge when I got to it.
So in other words, right now you're not totally against this, then?
No, I'm not totally against it, and I'm not totally for it.
Okay, but see,
still kind of torn on it.
That's what us on the left fear, is that when someone proposes something that we see like this, that we feel is extreme, certainly would annihilate. It would literally annihilate the transgender community. Fact is, even someone like yourself is like, I don't know if I really would be against this. This would completely destroy the transgender community altogether.
But what would he do? What did he say he was going to do? He would propose a bill, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that bill has to go before Congress, right?
Right.
And that Congress is already in place, so that the voice of the people is already out of place at that point. At that point, it's up to the representatives to determine, is this truly what their constituents want? And I'll vote in favor. If it's not what their constituents want, they don't. So
right. So what you're saying is, any of us who do not want the transgender community to be completely annihilated, we need to depend on Congress to save us, because he clearly is proposing a bill that would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means if you support the trans community, you probably shouldn't support Trump, right?
No, you support who you want to. I support the human race. I don't care how they live. How they live is their business.
Yeah, but I mean, you do know what you do understand that what he's saying is would literally prevent a person from transitioning altogether.
Yeah, but there again, it's going to be a federal law, and there are what's the word I'm looking for? There are stipulations between federal and state constitution. The state constitution will still hold rights to approve or deny what federal law is in some circumstances, and I'm thinking this would probably fall into one of those circumstances.
Yeah, but you don't listen to what you're saying. You're saying even though he's proposing something radical, either Congress or the states may prevent it. So what I'm saying, if you are transgender, why would you vote for this guy who you now got to hope the state or Congress stops him from imposing this legislation? If you're transgender, you probably should not vote for him. You don't see that?
Well, okay. He's first of all, he's not imposing legislation. He's just saying that he's going to introduce, and it's up to Congress to do it. Secondly, I know several transgender and LGBT community members that are actually clients of mine that are in favor of it if it comes with an age stipulation, and are completely against it if there's no age stipulation.
Yeah, but what I'm confused is you're pointing out that you're admitting what he is promoting is harsh. You're just saying, well, Congress or there may be some other legislation or the states or somebody may prevent it from happening. You're admitting what he's trying to do. If he gets his way, it's bad for transgender. But then when I ask you, should a transgender person vote for him? You're like, oh, I don't. That's what's confusing me.
Well, admitting what he's doing is harsh, is my opinion on it. Admitting that transgender can have their own vote that's their vote. That's not for me to say how they want to vote or how they don't want to vote, or anybody else, whether it's transgender community, straight community, or a green community or Martian community. It doesn't matter to me. Just vote your conscience.
So let me ask you this: do you think President Trump favors the transgender community?
Donald favors himself. That's all he's ever done.
Do you think what he just stated here is favorable to the transgender community?
No.
But you still think they should potentially vote for him?
No, I think everybody should vote their conscience. I don't particularly like Donald Trump.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting way of wording it. I mean, because the way you view his wording, but then you're saying vote your con. Okay, fair enough. I don't, like I
Well,
said, to me, I
the
think
way I
that.
view the
Go
way I
ahead.
viewed it, his wording, the way I viewed it, his wording is to me is black and white. It's simplistic and it's summarized, and he didn't go into detail. He just said, "This is what I want to do, and this is be the end result." Now, if he went into detail about everything, good Lord knows. First of all, it's going to take 3 weeks for his airtime to get all of his mean tweets and everything out of his system and his narcissism out of his system before he ever got to the topic.
Yeah.
Why he was
Well,
put on.
in regards to what you're saying, I mean, even without him going into complete detail, it's pretty obvious if you're going to ask Congress to only go with two genders, you really do not want transgender folks even in the mix. So to me, just the simple fact that you want to annihilate a group of people should be enough for you to make a decision on whether to vote for this guy or not if you're transgender. I think that voting for your conscience or hoping that the states save you or hoping that Congress saves you, you don't need to do any of that if you don't vote for this guy. But if you vote for the guy, now you got to hope that Congress or the states save you from what he's trying to do to you. That's what to me, that's what was confusing me.
I see what you're saying. In
Yeah.
my opinion, you're going to make a federal change on anything. You've got to start at home if you want it to reflect your ideologies or your opinions or your vote. You've got to clean up your house first before you can start moving into a mansion, right?
I
And
don't disagree with
Congress
that.
has become a huge mansion, and nobody knows where any of the housekeepers are and the maids are, and everybody's just running around doing their own thing and not paying attention to anything, let alone us gardeners that are out there working our asses off in the flower beds.
Well, but see, that's why a lot of people favor Trump, because you know where he stands. I mean, there's no wondering where he's at in the mansion. You know where he stands. But if you're a transgender, you're not in the same mansion with this guy. But I do agree, some of the things that comes out of Congress can be shady and difficult to understand. I think what Trump is saying here, if you're transgender, is pretty, as you said, black and white. It's pretty obvious where he stands. So if you're making your decision about him, at least him, not necessarily Congress or states' rights or anything, just in terms of him, if you favor trans or if you are in the belief that there's only two genders, I think his opinion is clear on that.
Yeah, it is, and but it's been a long time since we've had to vote for the good guy. It's years and years and years ago we had to vote for the lesser of two evils. So you gotta pick and choose and hope that do a lot of investigation.
Let me ask you this before I let you go. Who is the good guy in your opinion? You're saying we're about to vote for the good guy. Who you would have to be referring to someone.
I told you his name before, and right now you put me on the spot, so it slips my mind. But he's an actor, and I've told you that he plays a better president in more movies than any president in my lifetime. Back to Gerald Ford.
Who are you talking about? I'm curious. Is this person running for office?
No, he's not running for office, but he needs to. I'd vote for him in a heartbeat.
Okay, you said it's been a long time since we voted for the good guy. So right now in our current election, there are no good guys. Is that what you're saying?
No, there ain't a good guy. There's been the lesser of two evils for a long time.
All right, fair enough. I just wanted to get clarity in it. Okay, all right, fair enough. I got to move it on, old timer. It's always a good talk with you, though.
All right, brother. You have a wonderful day, and everybody in the listening land, be safe.
Appreciate it. Come on back anytime. Folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 30,000. We got about half of what I normally do on the lunch break laps. I understand it's a Sunday evening. I was watching the playoff game, so I know a lot of you folks are all scattered out, and I haven't done a Sunday live in quite a while. So, nevertheless, 400 plus of us in here. We are here, a little more of an intimate evening with the handsome liberal. So get your boy up to 30,000 or 35 if you're kind. As always, the program is and shall remain MAGA friendly in its entirety. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome as well. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. First Amendment free speech rights are always protected here. We enjoy the First Amendment, unless some of these folks that want to convene the states get the power to take it away from us. As Governor Abbott just stated, the ability to change amendments. First Amendment could be one of them. Sid, good afternoon, or better yet, good evening to Sid. Joe Jorgensen. I've heard somebody say, I don't know a lot about Jorgensen, but I've heard other folks recommend him. I don't know what happened in the box. We'll keep it moving. Actor Harrison Ford. Shit. How old is Harrison Ford? We're talking about Biden being too old, having dementia. Harrison Ford has landed planes on the wrong runway. You want Harrison Ford as president? No, I'm good about that one. No, I'm good. He might try to fly Air Force One and land it at a very small airport. No. Let's pass on Harrison Ford. Joe speaks better than most Americans, says user 1802. Well, depends on the Americans you're talking to. There's a lot of folks who believe that Joe Biden is in serious decline. And the polls would say that a lot of that is even coming from the liberal side of the aisle. When asked how has President Biden performed as president in his 2+ years, many of the liberals speak favorably of it. But when you ask those same people, well, do you want him to run again? The answer is no. I mean, there is probably, I think there's more. I seen a poll this morning on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, but I do believe at least half, we're talking about Democrats, not Republicans, about half of the Democrats do not want Biden to seek re-election. It's ageism. The number one issue is his age. They believe he's in mental decline and things like that. Very similar to what you're hearing from the right. The right is just harder with it. You know, Sleepy Joe, he has dementia, and you don't know where the hell he's at. He can't read. They're saying some pretty harsh things. But coming from the left, they're echoing the same sentiment, just in a softer tone. He's in mental decline. He's getting older. They're saying the same stuff. They're just not making fun of it. They're not ridiculing the guy. Looking in the comments, what do you think, Handsome? In regards to should Biden run again, it's hard to suggest that Biden is too old to get reelected, but Trump is not. Trump is not much younger than Biden. Both of these men, if they were to pass away right now, would be considered to have lived a full life. Neither one of these men, if they were to pass away right now, would be referred to as dying early. They both are pretty old guys. Biden only has 4 years on President Trump. I think about 4 years. So it's not like Trump is some spring chicken and Biden is ancient. The only difference is folks favor how Trump behaves in public over, say, President Biden. But Trump has made all sorts of gaffes and slips as well. It's just that the supporters of Biden, even on the liberal side of the aisle, do bring up the fact that he looks like he's making slips and, sometimes minces his words. The supporters of Trump just skip over all of the stuff. But Trump is certainly talking about Civil War era airports, 100 years before the invention of the airplane. Trump has did things like that. And in regards to his tweets, the sheer amount of grammatical errors on Trump's tweets, which one day will be at the Smithsonian. Children will take field trips to the Trump Library and all of that stuff. You're going to have some 3rd, 4th graders like, why was he spelling this like that? Why is the whole tweet in capitals? Why are there no punctuations? You get like a whole paragraph with no punctuation. Trump does that. Folks on the right just ignore it. It's not like Trump is doing things perfectly grammatically and Biden is screwing up constantly. Trump makes all kinds of grammatical errors and things like that. They just skip over it. Need young person to run for president. Well, DeSantis versus Gavin Newsom. That would solve that. I think most of the other Republicans, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Sununu is expected to get in there. You got Larry Elder, which is at the bottom of the pile. I don't think any of them have a chance. I think Mike Pence is in there. It would probably be Ron DeSantis. And then on the left side of the aisle, I think that a lot of folks would get behind Gavin Newsom if he was to announce. There's another liberal with Marianne Williamson. There's another liberal that is announced, but for the most part, it would have to be probably somebody like Gavin Newsom. Obviously, if Michelle Obama could ever be convinced, it would be a shoo-in. But I don't know. It looks like we're going to have Biden at the top of the ticket again. John R. Coase. Good evening, John R. Coase. I don't know what's going on with the box. There we go. Good evening, John.
Hello. You caught me off guard.
Oh, it's all good. Are you aware or have you familiar with the Convention of the States?
I'm familiar of that, but it's just, I think you would have to get 2/3 of the states to vote on that. And that would never happen. So it's something that doesn't bother me at all. The things that do bother me.
Go ahead.
The things that do bother me is the GOP and all of the conservatives want a small government. But yet, these GOP old white men want to handle women's health care. There's some more that want to ban people that aren't married living together. They also want to ban interracial marriage.
Wait a minute. You're saying they want to ban. What is the term when you live together? You're not married. We used to say shacking, but what is the official term when you're married? When you're not married, but you're married? We used to call it shacking. You're shacking together, but what is the actual term for that?
Yeah.
But they want to ban
I don't know offhand.
Common law marriage. They want to ban that?
Common law, yeah, common law. They want to ban common law. And, one of the people that were talking about it said, well, that would, if people have to get married to live together, then maybe we can have more kids. If they want to ban, they're talking about banning interracial marriage. Well, as long as Clarence Thomas is in the Supreme Court, that won't happen.
Who have you heard suggesting we ban interracial marriage?
Well, that was the big thing when they were talking about before Roe versus Wade ban. They were talking about.
I have not heard that.
Oh yeah, that would come next. Let the states decide whether there can be interracial marriages. That was that, and these conservatives, they all want small government, but government wants to be in your bedroom.
Yeah, I don't believe that conservatives want small government. I believe they're fine with big government. They just want big government to behave in a conservative manner. I don't believe they're for small. Because like you mentioned, abortion rights, they would love to have gun rights preserved federally. I mean, you're talking about
trans rights.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't believe it's an issue of wanting small government. You just want small government when the liberals are trying to tell you what to do. But if it's a right-wing idea, you're fine with it being federal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just, we're going, and especially with Trump, because the one thing I think about Trump will never be in the White House again.
I don't know. If it comes down to Biden versus Trump, you feel confident that Biden will beat him?
I would love to have that. Biden Kerry Lake ticket, Biden DeSantis ticket, any kind of ticket that way. We would love to have it because Biden would win. Lake? Oh, they're talking about Trump Kerry Lake.
Oh, Trump Kerry Lake. Okay, Trump Kerry Lake.
Yeah, they're talking about what is it, Katie Lake, I think. They're talking about that. We would love that. The Democrats would love that. And you were talking earlier, is Biden too old? Probably. Yeah. I don't think Biden should run. I think we should have somebody younger in there.
Here's where
against Trump, I'll take Biden any day.
Here's why I fear that Trump is not a write-off like you're talking about if it comes down to Trump versus Biden. I believe the energy to vote for Trump among the right is still very high. I don't believe the energy on the left to vote for Biden is high at all. I just think the energy to vote against Trump would be what we would be counting on. And I don't think that's enough.
What you're not counting in, and we didn't count in 2020, and we didn't count it in 2022, and it's a fact, is Gen Z. The younger people are going out to vote now. The younger people. Remember, there was going to be this red wave, this red tsunami. What happened?
Yeah, it did same thing about the walkaway movement with African Americans. They said we were going to walk away from the Democratic Party. But what about this? In the comments, Chris is saying Biden is racist and not my president. What about the claims that Biden is an intolerant president to minorities?
Well, here's the one thing I try not to do is when people make ignorant statements like that, I try not to answer those statements. Biden isn't his president. Where does he live? Where does he live then? If Biden is not his president of the United States, I can't bend down to his ignorance.
Fair enough. Okay.
You
I
just
didn't
can't do.
think about it. Where does he live?
Let me ask. I want to tell you one thing. I listen to you all the time, and I couldn't get on the other day because you keep using woke wrong. You keep allowing DeSantis's version of woke. Woke is a black thing. Woke is a
Elaborate.
black thing, like the N word is now a black thing. Woke was in the
Wait a minute.
60s. Woke was
Explain that. Give me some details.
Woke came up in the 60s when black folks were saying, we woke now. We want equal rights. We want vote. We want to be a part of America.
Yeah,
Does
that apply to woke in the modern definition? Is that still the same definition for it now in 2023?
You can't change the definition of the word. Woke is woke. You sound like Trump saying, the new N word, nuclear. What the hell is that?
Okay, all right. I'm learning something. I've never heard this before. Now you got me wanting to do some research.
Yeah, woke is what black people decided to do during the civil rights. We are woke now. And so when Ron DeSantis says this is where woke comes to die, we know what he's talking about.
Okay.
He doesn't want black history taught in there. He doesn't want transgender who are woke now.
Yeah, but if the transgender community are using woke, then it obviously has nothing to do with the black causes.
No. They're using the word. They're using the word like we use the word. DeSantis is using the word actually like we use the word too. This is where woke comes to die. We're not going to have critical race theory. Them woke black people. We're not going to have a certain AP black history. Them damn woke people. This is where it comes to die. Who do you think he's talking about? Be honest.
He's talking about liberal causes, liberal social issues. That's
no,
how
he's
I
not.
see it.
No, he's not. That's the point. That's my whole point. You use it wrong, and you need to go understand it. I'm your boy, but you need to go understand what the word means. They take a word. They take a word, just like Trump is trying to do. The N word. There's two N words. No, there's not. There's one, right? Am I wrong or right on that?
Did he wait a minute? Did he actually say there's two N words?
You need to research it. Nuclear. Absolutely.
Yeah, he said nuclear.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. There's two N words. So did we go with that? If I called you a dirty, rotten nuclear, what would you do? But if I called you, if somebody else called you the dirty, rotten other N word, we got problems.
Right. All right, man. I gotta go hang out with my nuclears. I gotta move it on.
All right, and you better start using woke right, or I'll be back.
Okay. Hey, come on back regardless, man. Good talk.
Nice talk.
Now, before I go back to the box, you're being ignorant, Tim, says Lewis. Hey, listen, let me make it clear. I'm not always the one to have all the answers. Sometimes I am genuinely ignorant. That is the whole purpose of the live stream that I run, is that I want to make it clear to you folks, I am not a know-it-all. I don't have all the answers. I never talk down to my guests. That is one reason why I do enjoy talking to MAGA. That's why this program always does remain MAGA-friendly, always will remain MAGA-friendly. Because at the end of the day, it's not like the liberals have all of the answers and MAGA are just idiots, or vice versa. So I always enjoy having dialogue with both sides of the aisle without any issues of trying to ban or block anybody. And by the way, folks, if that is what you enjoy, follow the program, because that's what we do here. Is we don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. And of course, you don't have to agree with the damn host. You just seen what happened. He was educating me, which is going to make me certainly want to do some homework. I want you guys to hear this, though. In regards to more states' rights legislation coming down the pipe, I want you to hear this and see how many of you favor this.
New tonight, Texas schools could soon be required to display the Ten Commandments in every classroom starting in the next school year. That's after a bill passed the Senate this evening. Gerald Harris live in the newsroom with this story. Gerald?
Yeah, Len, you may remember last time the Texas legislature was in session, they passed a similar law requiring "In God We Trust" to be displayed in public schools. Now the Senate wants to add more religious items in schools. Senate Bill 1515 by North Texas Republican State Senator Phil King would require a poster or framed copy of the Ten Commandments. All public schools, including elementary and secondary classrooms, and for it to be displayed in a clearly visible area to students. King says the Ten Commandments are part of America's history and traditions.
In Texas prior to 1980, you quite likely saw copies of the Ten Commandments because of their moral code, their place in history, and their place in American and Western law.
The Senate also passed SB 1396 by Galveston Republican Senator Mays Middleton, which would allow public and charter schools to adopt a policy requiring every campus to set aside a time for students and employees to pray and read the Bible or other.
I want to point out something. Now, whether you agree or disagree with this piece of legislation, it's always about understanding why people say what they say, whether it's on your side of the aisle or the other side. When folks suggest that Republicans are trying to turn back time, you just heard that guy talk about before the 1980s, the Ten Commandments could be seen in schools, which leads to the obvious question, certainly from myself being a minority. What else did we have before the 1980s? Now, obviously, the 1980s is 40 years ago. So he clearly is in favor of rolling back at least that very part of how we behave in America. Certainly when it comes to separation of church and state, freedom of religion, he's certainly rolling that back because he's talking about the Ten Commandments in schools. He's talking about reserving time for prayer. You think if Muslim children brought blankets to school and wanted to get on their knees and pray, you think he would be equally as favorable to that? Don't kid yourself. You want the Ten Commandments on the wall in a country that believes in freedom of religion. So does that mean the Quran is going to be on the wall as well? We know the answer to that. So this certainly is setting in my humble opinion, a bad precedent. Doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. This is setting a bad precedent because if you can do this in Texas, well, Michigan happens to have the largest Muslim population in the country. Wouldn't that mean they could also pass laws demanding that the Quran be taught in schools or lessons on Sharia law? Now, I believe Texas has already passed laws against Sharia law, so it starts to look like religious discrimination to some point. But if you are a fan of small government, you shouldn't like this. Even at the state level, you should not be in favor of this. Looking in the comments, they are allowed to pray. Yeah, but it's talking about specifically setting time aside to give them, like having a break so they can pray. That's a little bit different than what you currently have now. You don't need to stop doing what you do to pray. Hell, I can pray while I'm talking to you guys. But when you're talking about taking specific breaks and things like that, now you're putting a hell of a lot of emphasis on it. Looks like indoctrination, says Faith London. And I agree that, okay, right now in particularly states like Florida, the argument is that children are too young to handle issues regarding the LGBT community. Could warp their mind. Hell, even in Florida, Ron DeSantis passed laws that prevents it being taught all the way up on through high school. So even children that may actively be in gay relationships can't even learn about it in Florida. But when you look at what's in the Bible, people turning into piles of salt, people being banished to hell, burning forever. How are children able to handle that? How is it that a child cannot handle an LGBT description in books, but they can handle another book that's talking about if they don't do this, they'll burn in hell or burst in flames or turn into a pile of salt? Why is one manageable, but the other is not? And that's why I did a video earlier that was titled, "Are we literally trying to protect children when it comes to the LGBT community? Or are we using children to mask outright hatred toward the community?" Because if you read what's in the Bible, it's pretty harsh. It's pretty damning to children. Heather, can't get the words out. I meant to thank you earlier. I appreciate those lightning bolts. Certainly, your generosity does not go unnoticed. So I appreciate that, Heather. Thank you. Certainly a friend of the program. Looking at the comments. Great job. Better yet, why do you ask questions that you already know the answer to? Because sometimes my answer is incorrect. Usher, my answer is not always right, and I want to hear the response from the people. Sometimes we pass questions back and forth that can enlighten the audience or enlighten the host. So even if you know the answer, or even if you feel a certain type of way, sometimes it's good to express it, because I have changed some hearts and minds, and I've had hearts and minds change me. That's what we do here. Looking in the comments, I appreciate your good debates, Tim, even when we disagree. Heather, thank you. Thank you. And vice versa. Because God is showing his wrath towards the wicked. It gives you an example for what will happen. Is there any time in the history of mankind, if you are religious, is there any time in the history of mankind in which God did not show his wrath towards the wicked? It's not like that's new. The world is going to hell. Were you doing good or were you doing grip? I don't quite get that comment. Seriously, our country has lost its morals. We need God back in schools, not transgender. Matt from Texas. Here's why I'm against that. And I'll go back to the box after this comment. There was a time in this country we were far more religious than we are now, which is kind of what you're saying. Our country has lost its morals. We need to go back to God. I would submit to you, the further back in history we go, the more religious we were. And the further back in history you go, the more oppressive we were. The country was treating people horribly during some of the most religious moments in our history. Why would someone like me want to go back in time during the time when our country was the most religious? It was horrible. I mean, keep in mind, the KKK was meeting in churches. They were very religious. They burned crosses. I don't want to go back to that. The country was extremely judgmental. They were great if you were Christian, but if you didn't believe in what they believed, they might burn you at the stake. Why would anybody suggest that that was a great time to go back to? I mean, it doesn't matter what religion you are in, regardless if it's Christianity, Islam, or whatever. The fact is, religion is extremely judgmental. And if you are not of the same cloth as this group, and I'm not just talking Christians, I'm talking any group, they don't like you. So in a country as diverse as America, with literally being a melting pot from people of all around the world, I don't see how you could go back to that era. Now, when we were very Christian in this country, we didn't have anywhere near the diversity. Certainly not in power. You may have had people from different places, but for the most part, all the power was in the hands of a few people. Now that you got folks from all walks of life being able to assume positions of power and things like that, they don't all follow Christianity. I think the time for that is probably expired. I think that would cause a lot of chaos, but fair enough. You about ready to silence me, big handsome liberal, says Chris Warden. I'm not going to silence anyone. I like for folks to be able to speak. Nevertheless, soothe operator. Good evening. Welcome to the program. Kind of a take on Sade's early, 80s hit, Smooth Operator. I don't know what's going on, but TikTok is not bringing that guest in. This host is a joke, or as a joke, Dan Buck. I'm assuming you're saying the host is a joke. Well, come on in the box and laugh with your boy. Let me know where I'm messing up at. Chris, are you buggy? New York City is safe. I don't believe that. I don't know what you're talking about, Chris, but New York City has its problems. Every major urban area in this country has its problems, though. I don't know what happened with my last guest, but I'll give it a minute and I'll move on. But in regards to, let's say, liberal cities, you often hear Chicago, St. Louis, not St. Louis, but Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles. These are you hear about these towns because they're liberal cities and they're supposedly high crime. You don't hear as much about St. Louis, Memphis, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, even though those are the murder capitals of the country, because they're in Republican states. You're not going to escape crime by going to Republican areas. You're just not. New York City is safer than Ohio. I do believe that New York City is safer than a lot of other cities, but because New York is a bastion of liberalism, they target it. If you go by per capita, though, some of these rural cities are catching up. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm gonna keep it moving. I don't know what happened with my last guest, but we'll keep it going. Let's try it with Kevin Ray. Good afternoon, folks. Appreciate you folks tapping the screen. Get your boy up to 55,000. If it's enough love in your hands and your thumbs to tap the screen, get your boy up to 55,000 likes. I don't know what's going on with the box. It's preventing me from bringing on guests. I think you got to put a wig on myself. Chris Ward, I don't get that comment. I think you got to put a wig on myself. That doesn't make any sense. I'm from Memphis. Tim F. Memphis. Police officer glory hole. What kind of a name is that? I always love the unique names, but police officer glory hole. That literally sounds like a walking violation to law enforcement. I'm from Memphis, F Memphis. All right, but that name is crazy. Yeah, I got a problem with all your people, with your platforms, you handsome liberal. Chris Warden, you got a problem with all my people. Nope, doesn't sound racist at all, folks. All right, looking at the comments, they hate New York City because of the Jewish people there. Wow, wow, is that the case? I'm learning as we go on. 94% of mass casualty events are in gun-free zones run by liberals. Why? That's not true. That absolutely is not true. There's a hell of a lot of mass casualty events happening in areas where you have no limitations on carrying a firearm. How many of them has happened in Walmart? Didn't a guy go in El Paso Walmart, take out 20-some people back in 2000, I think 19? Went into a Walmart, took 20 lives. Traveled because he was anti-Hispanic. No, there's no anti-gun law in a Walmart in El Paso. In fact, that's why they passed a law that says they're going to stop selling firearms. It's because of what he did there. So, no, there's a hell of a lot of mass casualty events happening in Republican areas that are not gun-free zones. The guy firing across the street at the Mandalay Bay, that wasn't a gun-free zone. He went into the Mandalay Bay Hotel, took out one of the windows and started shooting across the street. Nothing gun-free about that. And the number of mass casualty events in zones that are not gun-free is endless. We could continue talking all day long, and I could bring up areas where this stuff has happened that was not in a gun-free zone. So, no, that's not true. David, and you believe that. I don't get that one. If gun-free zones are so bad, why does the NRA convention become one every year? That is an excellent, excellent comeback. That if gun-free zones are horrible and zones where you can carry firearms are so safe, why does the NRA, when they have their conventions, prevent you from bringing a firearm in? I didn't know that, but if that is the case, that's an excellent comeback. Alabama did just have a mass casualty event. That's another one. It's somebody's house or something like that. Yep, I do remember that. I see you folks are saying true. Let me see if I can move it on and make something happen. I'm having a hard time bringing on guests. Okay, I think it brought in Kevin. All right,
Can
good afternoon.
Good
evening, Kevin.
Hey, how are you there, handsome liberal?
I'm doing good. Welcome to the program. You've been listening in, I take it? This convention of the states, are you aware of this?
Okay, you know what? First off, I just want to say something. I'm not even American. I'm a Canadian. Okay.
Okay. All right.
I love your show. I love your show. I watch you all the time. I'm Canadian. I just came on, so I'm not quite sure what
Okay, well,
what you've been speaking.
I won't run the convention of the states by you if you're not in the country. But I will ask you this: what do you Canadians think of us Americans? You know, what's going on in this country right now?
Well, this is what I wanted to speak on because let's just say I'm 47 years old myself, okay?
Okay.
And let's say COVID happened 3 years ago, okay? So prior to COVID, I never was really into politics. I wasn't into that shit or anything, okay? Or anything to do with
Okay.
government. And it's really enlightened me to what the government is. And, back when Trump and Biden's election happened and then all that was taking place, and then the January 6th resurrection thing, all that shit, and then how they accused Trump for, planning that and doing all that crap, and then actually seeing stuff behind the scene that actually happened with the police leading in certain individuals into the building. It's really enlightened me how corrupt the stuff actually is. And as Canadians up here, we're probably doing the same thing as you as Americans are doing to us, just shaking your head saying, how's this shit even happening?
Well, I would tell you this in regards to President Trump, because there are folks in this country that believe, for instance, he won the 2020 election, and there's people who believe he lost the 2020 election. You're talking about potential witch hunts trying to get the man and things like that with January 6th. I will say this: whether that stuff is true or false, it all happened for the same reason, and that is Trump came into power insulting and attacking any and everybody. So whether he got cheated out of an election or voted out of an election, it's all because of how he acted. I do believe that if you look at the Trump's performance on paper, he should have probably been reelected. He was worthy of a second term based on his
Right.
legislation and what he did in office. But I say it all the time: assholes attract assholes, and he took pleasure in being an asshole. So whether the election was stolen or whether he got voted out, it's for the same reason. Same thing, you want to bring up the witch hunts. Whether the cases after Trump are legitimate cases of criminal prosecution or whether they are witch hunts. Once again, it's for the same reason. Because if Trump was a personable, nice leader, I think some of the cases they're going after him for, they would let a normal president get a pass on it. All of this stuff is happening to that man is because he's an asshole to people. I do believe assholes attract assholes, and that's why he's going through all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we're going through a thing up here in Canada right now with our last election. They're saying that was interference with China. So they're doing some kind of I don't want to call it, but they're looking at, I mean, of course, and then of course our wonderful prime minister, he elects a government, or sorry, he elects a judge that's really good, a friend to their family. So I mean, where's
Okay.
this going to go? You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but
just
that's
the level
not
of corruption.
none of that stuff is new. For instance, we interfere with Chinese, Russian, Iranian elections and things like that all the time. Talking about folks in the West, particularly America. So is there some interference by other countries in people's elections? That I think that's always happened. Some of the corruption you're talking about, that stuff has always happened. I just believe in regards to President Trump, his biggest issue is the fact that he mistreated so many prominent people in power. It's kind of like a karma thing. Do on others, and all of us. Like for instance, with the Hillary Clinton thing, Trump is claiming that they're coming after him and they're not giving him due process with the January 6th hearings and things like that. He didn't have any problem suggesting that Hillary Clinton get locked up without due process. Now all of a sudden it's happening to him. I just think that assholes attract assholes. Same thing with pleading the fifth. If you plead the
Well,
fifth, it means you got something to hide or you're down with the mafia. Now all of a sudden he's pleading the fifth and he expects you to respect it. So it's just a matter of being able to treat people with respect, and that tends to be what you get back. But he was
far as
taking
I'm
pleasure in
concerned,
disrespecting people.
it's all corrupt. They're all corrupt. You know what? It's just good cop playing good cop, bad cop. You know what? They're gonna these are gonna separate these and they're gonna separate that, and it's like up here. Like, we've got Pierre Poilievre, who's like your Trump, and then you got our Trudeau, who's your Biden, and it's like good cop playing good cop, bad cop shit. And here's I never knew the depth of corruption with government until COVID took place. Once COVID took place, 6 months into it, everything was a conspiracy, and then all those conspiracies become true, and then it's like, you know what? It really woke me up. I know it woke me up, but I really didn't know the effect of the corruption in governments, and I thought they were to help you, but opened my eyes quite a bit. So I've learned quite a bit since COVID's happened, right? So
Yeah.
I just hope everything turns out for the best of both of our countries, and I just want to say I really enjoy your show.
Appreciate it. And I'm with you. I'm hoping for the best as well. But as always, Kevin, I got to move it on. Come on back through anytime, man. Thank you.
Take care, bud. Take care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking in the comments. Some folks, when I was having the last conversation, and I do try to pay attention to your comments. Faith London, thank you for the rose. Thank you. Appreciate the generosity. I do try to focus on your comments. Some folks are saying, well, Hillary Clinton should be locked up, and asking yours truly, don't I think she should be locked up? I don't know. And the answer is, whether if Hillary Clinton is corrupt or criminal, should she be locked up? Not without due process. There's no due process. She wasn't found guilty by a jury of her peers. There was no trial. And Trump has been in office for 4 years. If she was that guilty, why didn't he have his federal government go after her? So I'm just simply saying, if you don't want witch hunts, don't be part of a witch hunt. If you don't want people locking up a candidate of your choice without giving them due process, don't support a candidate of your choice asking for somebody to be locked up without due process. That's all I'm saying, is that you got to learn to do unto others as you want done to you. I strongly believe there is nothing Trump is complaining about, whether right or wrong, that I can't come up with him doing to somebody else. Almost everything that Trump is saying that is being wrongfully done to him, it's pretty easy to find an example of where he did the same thing to someone else. Assholes attract assholes. That's all I'm saying. Keeping it moving. We are ready, says Toddzilla. Ready for what? Look at it in the comments. Except he didn't, says Mike T. Hustle. Yeah, well, you're not going to believe that. Of course not. Because, as the man said, he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue. But, yeah, he said some things that were horribly wrong, such as lock her up. How can you call for somebody to be locked up that's not being found guilty of anything yet? How can you call for that? If you're okay with that, then, yeah, you just don't see it. You're just biased in his favor. There is corruption only a second American Revolution. I hope not. Even when he got elected, he went on rallies talking about how horrible liberals were. I don't totally listen. That's kind of politics there. I'm not a fan of what he was doing on his rallies, but there are plenty of folks on the left side of the aisle that go on rallies or whatever the hell you want to call it, talking about right-wingers as well. So I'm not going to fault him for talking about liberals. But when you start calling them names and attacking their family and things like that, that's where I draw the line. And that did happen. He goes into personal realms, and that's where I believe you get folks that want him back personally. The system is corrupt. The is the reason she got off. Otis, if you're suggesting that the system is corrupt and that is the reason Hillary Clinton got off, then you also are suggesting that when Trump promised to drain the swamp, he lied. You're saying if the system is still corrupt, he promised to get rid of the corruption. He promised us that Hillary Clinton would be held accountable. Promises made, promises failed, based on what you're saying. Let's keep it going. I don't know what's going on with my box or not, but we're trying to. Brooklyn Redbone. It's a name we used to give to some really attractive women back in the day. Redbone. Brooklyn Redbone. Good evening.
How you doing?
Doing very good, doing very good. We were actually talking about the convention of the states, but as usual, it kind of warped into a Trump conversation. But have you heard about the convention of the states at all?
I just heard about it the other day, and it's really scary to me.
Yeah. I've kind of said the same thing. I have concerns about it, but oddly enough, the folks that are in favor of this are all on the right side of the aisle. So they're mostly Republican conservative based. Any idea why one side would be in favor of this and not likely the other side?
From what I heard, they're trying to get Democrats and liberals out of their states so they can take complete control of their states. And then once they get complete control, they're going to try to succeed. If they can get 33 or 34 other states together to form their own little Christian government, they're going to try to succeed, is what I heard.
So, what would, because you mentioned it's scary, or you're not a fan of it, and neither am I. What do you fear most that would happen if this was to take place?
Um, Civil War, one.
Wow, that's all you
Two,
need.
yeah.
That's worse enough.
Civil War, one. Two, I hate to say this,
Any,
but
any, any? Do you see any freedoms or way of life that we've become
yeah,
accustomed to being
that's
taken
going to
away?
be gone. Yes, a lot. It's already, it's, we left, America became America because we didn't want to live under a Christian religious rule. And it seems like we're falling back into that. And I don't want to live under a Christian rule. I really don't. I am a woman, older. I'm 51. I like walking around with low cut shirts. I like being able to go outside with my dog. You know, I feel like they're going to, just the littlest things, they're going to be like, well, the Bible said, and then I
Mm.
can't do it no more.
Yeah, I
It's
can't
like
hate
the
on the red bone.
Taliban.
Well, I can't hate on the red bone with a low cut shirt. But so I am who I am. So at the end of the day, though, you can see women being targeted.
Yes, I can see
Mhm.
women being targeted. I can see children being targeted. They're already changing laws so that children can work in factories and work in bars
I
and do
saw
things.
that. I saw that.
Yeah,
Like, what the
and
hell?
it's kind of, it's weird. Why do we want our children in these places? Why would you want your 13-year-old and 17-year-old boys picking up 50 pounds?
I saw that and I wondered the same thing. Why don't you need a law that allows children? I mean, there was a reason why we took kids out of factories to begin with because it was bad for children. Like, I mean,
Exactly. And then
what?
they're going to pay them proper wages. And if they get hurt on the job, they can't sue.
Wow. I don't. So, what kind of America are they? I mean, where are they directing us? In addition to women, do you see any other groups or freedoms being lost?
Women and children, especially girls, because the little girls, they're letting them be married off at 14 and 15 again. So
All
it's
Republicans.
our, all Republicans, it's our little girls, our little boys, and the women. Um, I feel like older white men have had control so long, and because they don't have that same amount of control, they're snatching everything back, right? Because they lost just a tiny bit of control. It's driving them mad. So they want all control back.
Wow. Is it
That's
possible
how
that
I
they could
feel.
actually succeed in this?
I think they can because a lot of people are afraid of change.
Well, they're
And a lot of
promoting
people,
change, though.
no, they don't want, no, they feel like the Christian right is the way life used to be, and that's where we should be and always be. And the change is living by other religions or just no religion at all.
Yeah.
My
So let
biggest
me ask
thing
you this
is
question, because this was this was coming out of the comment section, but this person, we're talking about the LGBT community, but I'll give you the wording that they stated. The alphabet community is just a red herring to usher in hate speech laws as a precursor to limit. How do you view a statement like that? The
I
alphabet
view it
community is just a red herring
first.
to usher in
I
hate.
I view it as a silly statement because they're people, they're human beings, and just like back in the day, black people had to prove that we were human beings and that we were people, and we just wanted to live our lives like everybody else. You might have a gay milkman back in the days. Now you might have a gay mailman. They just want to live their life the way we do. And that's what I feel. They just want to be free like us, right? It's the biggest issue with, I hate to say this, it sounds a little wrong, but the biggest issue with me with conservatives is they don't know how to mind their business.
Mm. Well, the crazy thing is they suggest they're for small government and leaving
But
the
it's
people
not.
alone.
But they're not for small government because small government wouldn't be in my family. Small government wouldn't be in my hospital room. Small government wouldn't be in my stores. Small government would mind their business.
I can't disagree with that. All right, Redbone. Love the
Thank you
name.
very
I got to
much.
move it
And
on.
I have to say before I go,
Sure.
I've listened to you a couple of times. And even with your Trump hat behind you, I will give you 100% credit that you're not like most Trump supporters. You're very much a listener. You take in both sides and you talk the truth. And I appreciate that.
It's an honor. And I lean left, by the way. So the hat is to let Trump supporters know they're welcome on the program, but I lean left. Come on through
Okay.
anytime. All right. Good
Okay.
talk. All right.
Have a good.
Looking in the comments, somebody says, Todd Ziller, whatever cat lady, be kind to the guest. That's me. Do you want to play another game, Chris Warden? What is the game? What is the game? All right, looking in the comments, he don't support Trump. Yeah, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm not a Trump hater as well. I'm willing to give kudos and credit to where I believe Trump did things that are good for the country. The economy, nobody was complaining about the economy under Trump or $2 gas and things like that. He did bring us Operation Warp Speed. I would suggest that the Space Force one day will be something that we will give him credit for when it's needed. So it's not like he just was awful. It's just it is the non-legislative rhetoric of Trump that yours truly is a huge opponent of. If he had done what he suggested, simply aiming at keeping the country great, I think he'd have been fine. It's the stuff he did outside of essentially trying to make the country an effective country. I mean, the name calling, the personal attacks. You can make a country great without doing any of that. Which is why some folks would suggest that Ron DeSantis is going to give you the same legislation of Trump, but they want Trump. Why? Because they actually like the rhetoric. I mean, he gets up there Pocahontas or, Nervous Nancy, Sleepy Joe Biden, Crazy Bernie. A lot of you folks like that stuff. Well, in my opinion, every time you applauded that name calling stuff, you were helping that man talk himself out of a job. But that's my own personal opinion. I know you guys have a different opinion. Looking in the comments, he was awful. Look at what he reignited, and yeah, but that's because of the rhetoric. That's because of the rhetoric. Now, I don't think his policies reignited what you're suggesting. It's the rhetoric that did that. That's what I'm talking about. total and complete ban on all Muslims entering the country. That's rhetoric associated. Well, he was also trying to make it a policy too, though. Only because the left has attacked us and poked at us for years. Todzilla. Well, if the left was poking at you and attacking you, and you think about how you felt from that, if you thought it was wrong, think about how you felt. So your response was, I'm going to make them feel like that as well. It's a tit for tat response. Well, here we are. In other words, I'm not going to be the bigger man. I'm going to go and jump in the mud with them. Okay, then here you are. You're in the mud. No rhetoric. It was his supporters January 6th. I believe that the viewpoint of Trump was already poor before January 6th. Otherwise, he would have been getting inaugurated on January 21st. But January 6th certainly didn't help anything out. Could have swore about 5 minutes called you call me racist because I told you the truth. Chris Warden, what are you talking about? Never referred to you as a racist. What are you talking about? Nationalism is a sickness of the intellectual inferior. Wow. And there are folks that agree that nationalism is bad for the country. Chris Warden is a troll who reports lies. Yikes. See it in the comments. All right, let me keep it moving. We'll go right back to the box. Vass 3-7. Good. Vass. Snugs, I see you in there. I don't know if we won't let Vass in. There we go. Vass was holding on. Good evening, Vass.
What's up, man?
Hey, I appreciate you been holding on there, man. So obviously you already know what's going on.
Yeah.
So what do you think? This convention of the states, you see this as some effort to roll back history?
I mean, pretty much, yeah. It's like it's got the tone of we want to have a meeting about what's that? Going back to that Confederacy separation of the states. That's what it sounds like to me.
Why do you think they want to do this?
Because they just okay. I'm gonna say, there's just a sad reality, right?
Okay.
And I think the sad reality is it's like we just can't get along. Like there's just some facts to face. Like even though we try to say things like, hey, you'll see many of the congressmen say, well, I'm a Republican and he's a Democrat. We do have debate issues, but we're cool and we're friends and all this. But in society, the issues that they're debating are affecting our lives. So when you come across people, they come off rude. It gets frustrating. It gets to a level of ignorance.
When did this start happening, though? I mean, is this something? We haven't always been like this.
I would say in the last 10. I'd say the last 10 years. Last 10 years is when this started bubbling like this, where people started acting like this.
Now, I get guests on here, particularly MAGA, that suggest that Obama is the one that divided up the country. You're talking 10 years. Do you submit to that same statement that it's the Obama era that made the country really divided?
Yes. And not by the work of Obama, but by the fact of Obama being president is what happened. You got a lot of people that just felt a certain kind of way when they looked and seen a black, I'll give you a story. Okay. On my end, I watched a man that was 75 years old when he went into office. I was actually locked up in prison, and his name was Mr. Smith, and he's like 75 years old. When Obama got, won, he cried. You know what I'm saying? Because he lived to see a black president. He cried.
A lot of people did. did. I think Jesse Jackson cried, and a lot of people did.
On the other hand, I seen some white folks that was in the TV room jump up, ball up the paper in their hand, and walk straight out the door. It was like, I can't believe this shit. You know what I'm saying? What the hell? The one dude, we was walking down the hall. One dude said, "Oh, whole damn country's going to hell." And I'm like, dude, you locked up, bro. We all locked up in here. You already. I mean, can you just imagine though? You can't even be
That's
happy
hatred. That's pure hatred. But let me ask you this, because this is coming out of the comment section. Otis Anderson asks, why do black men vote Democrat anyway?
because it's the lesser of the evil. You don't give us nothing that we should be supporting over there. You've got 10. You know what you got? It's like you got 10 black guys that over there like that'll do the same thing. They'll ask, "Why do you vote Democrat?" They're doing this. They're doing this. They're doing this, and I'm like, "Yeah, but look what they say. You're saying you don't have
Yeah.
any proof of the things that you say that they're doing. I can literally go and just pull up anything that they say, and when you listen to it, it just spews out some type of bigotry, some type of hatred, some type of, we're gonna take this. And you know what? And here's another sad reality. The only time you get along with Republicans is when you obey them. If you
Ooh,
obey Republicans, then y'all cool. But
ooh.
as soon as you start saying, "Nah, man, I don't like that," there's no compromise. Like I said, like I heard the dude, like the one woman that you had on her, she said 15 weeks. She would be all right with that as far as abortion.
That's
And she said,
obeying.
she said for her preference, she would say 24,
Yep.
but she
Yep.
could compromise with 15. And I would say the same thing. Yeah, you know, but it's like they don't. And then it's like they say things like, "We want less government." They hand the abortion rights over to the states. So they hand it over to the state government to make the call. And they act like that's not government. That's government telling
It's
you what
government
to
on
do.
yeah, it's government on a smaller scale. So in the comments, real quick, here's another one. Knucklehead. You'll lose more freedom under Democrats than Republicans. Now it sounds like you're saying the opposite.
How? Explain it. How? And that's all if you listen, anything that you want to say, if you can explain it and we can go in a book and look it up, I will gladly say, "Hey man, you right.
Yeah.
Let me switch up. Let me switch up
Well,
because I didn't know
I can
this."
explain. Listen, I'll explain it to you because I tend to be able to see both sides of the issue. The issue is Republicans believe you will lose more rights under the Democrats because the rights you're losing are things we don't want anyway. Like, for instance, you will lose gun rights under Democrats. That's true. They will limit some of your gun rights in some areas. Now, that
I
the
don't agree.
Democrats are not going to complain about that. The same thing in regards to Christianity in schools. You're going to lose that under Democrats. We're not going to complain about that. So there are some rights you will lose, but for the most part, the Democrats, just like under the Republicans, you'll lose the right to have an abortion. Well, they're not going to
But
complain about that. They don't
if,
care about you losing that right.
but
So I
but if
think under both parties, you will lose some rights.
and I'll say this: if the Democrats start talking about taking guns, I'm voting Republican.
Will,
I'm not going to
will
just
that
vote
one?
Democrat.
What about? Okay, they are talking about taking guns. There's the assault rifle ban. There's several states that have already started implementing. I think the state of Washington today, the sale, manufacturer, or import of assault rifles. They just banned it in that state, so they are doing that.
I couldn't vote for that. I can't vote for that because I don't
With that
believe.
alone, with knowing all of the things the Republican Party stands for, all the things the Democratic Party stands for, would the Second Amendment alone be a reason for you to go to the Republican Party?
It might not be to go to the Republican Party, but I would definitely. I can't vote for them either now because
Well, that's the same thing, though. If you
that
don't,
is a
yeah, if you are typically liberal, but one issue make it so you won't support the Liberal Party, even though you don't vote Republican, that's a vote for the Republican Party because you weren't going to
well.
vote for them anyway. You just took your vote away from the liberals, which helps out the Republican Party.
Right. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but don't say things that affect my rights. That's what
All
I'm
right.
all about. Whoever you are, don't say things that will affect my rights. That's all
All
I'm
right.
asking you. You want to
Fair
make
enough.
laws, make the laws that don't affect my rights, inalienable rights that we're given.
Yeah,
That they
I don't think you're going to find any policy. You want. I mean, you would certainly be not only an independent, but to have none of your rights I mean, that's certainly in the libertarian category. It might be close to anarchy, but you would need to vote for a libertarian to get what you want.
I vote Democrat right now because that, like you said, I'm not going to not vote and just let the Republicans have the vote and get a vote. But if you start talking about things that affect like the first, the second, the fourth, the sixth, the seventh, of course, the 13th, you start talking about with those amendments, then I can't. Those are very, very powerful amendments. You know what I'm saying? That's the
Let me
backbone.
ask you this in regards to that. With this convention of states, you got Governor Abbott of Texas saying that it wouldn't change the Constitution, but we might be willing to make amendments. If the Republican Party was able to get this convention of states, what type of amendments do you fear, or are you concerned that they may work with? I mean, what kind of amendments to the Constitution are they likely to add?
I, I believe in just knowing them, just knowing the Republican Party, it'll probably have more to do with work, wages, the money. And that's what I think.
An amendment in regards to wages, what do you think they would say wage
Huh.
wise?
It won't be good. I know what. But because when it
Just
comes
like
to
outlaw
money,
the minimum wage completely or something?
yeah, I mean, probably. I could definitely see that. I could see
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I
yeah.
could see that. You can pay whatever you want based on this, that, and this. They'll do away with the minimum wage because and like I said, like right now, some places here have went back, scaled back down on their pay. So they've gotten rid of like all those people that when they were paying like here it was $16 an hour, $17 an hour. Well, now they've got pretty much gotten rid of them, and they're bringing people in. They're paying them at $11 an hour.
Wow. Yeah, I've never talked to a Republican that was in favor of the minimum wage. They
Right.
either don't want it to move or they want to get rid of it entirely. They certainly don't, that $15 an hour type of stuff or increasing the minimum wage. I haven't talked to any Republicans that are fans of that at all. They either want no minimum wage or to leave it at the $7, $8 an hour, whatever it is currently. So
It's 7.25. We're all over the United States. That's minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is 7.25. So as
yeah,
long as they pay you over 7.25, they're not committing no crime. And if they
yeah,
give you more than that, well, they feel like they're doing you a favor. But
yeah, right. In this
yeah,
economy,
but be on time. Make sure you're on time. Just like this, you got to go above and beyond. And I'm just like, man, everybody's just so full of it, man. It's just really getting to that point where it's like, you know what? I wouldn't mind watching it all fall apart. I
you might be
really would
watching it
because
now,
it's
which is
just
why people
disgusting.
are. Yeah, you might be watching it now, which is why people are popping each other for some of the most mundane shit, like pulling up in the wrong driveway or knocking on the wrong door. But I gotta move it
Oh,
on, man.
okay, man.
Hey,
I
good.
appreciate you.
Hey, appreciate you holding as well. All right, look. Comments. Congress gets a raise every year. Yeah, that is true. Here's one of the things I will say, because I often hear folks talking about term limits, mostly on the right, but there are liberals that want term limits as well. You don't need the federal government to give you term limits. Just stop voting the people in. You got plenty of states like California with Nancy Pelosi or Kentucky with Mitch McConnell. There's no interference from opposing parties to elect Nancy Pelosi or to reelect Mitch McConnell. If the Republicans in Kentucky want term limits and do not want Mitch McConnell to keep getting reelected, stop reelecting him. It is that simple. You don't need the federal government to pass a law to stop you from electing the people you want in office. He keeps winning because they want him in office. Kentucky is not dealing with a hell of a lot of liberals. They certainly ain't voting in Mitch McConnell. It's all Republicans. If you want term limits, just don't vote the guy back in. You keep inviting them in, so your response is, well, we need the federal government to save us from ourselves and pass a law so that we don't vote the same guy back in. That makes no sense for some folks who suggest the power should be left up to the people and we should have states' rights. Snugs, 122. Definitely a friend of the program. It's a pleasure to talk to Snug. Good afternoon.
Hello. Hello, my
Hey,
friend, my friend. How you doing? How you doing?
it's going good, going good. You see what's on the monitor behind me. Talk to me.
I see. I see. Well, you know what? I think that all the states should become Republican because the Democrats had enough time. We need to get them off the charts right now. Hey, TJ, we need to get everybody off the charts. Seriously, it's been democratically run, all the major cities across America, democratically run, and it's democratically run down. Look at these
What
cities,
would
and people are
America?
still voting Democrat.
What would America be like if all of the states were Republican?
Oh my gosh. And Trump as president, we would have
Yeah.
a terrific, beautiful country. You know, all our manufacturing would come back. We would make everything here. Our medicines, everything. It would be beautiful.
I played this earlier, but you weren't on. I want you to listen to this.
Okay, yeah,
Texas
go ahead.
schools could soon be required to display the Ten Commandments in every classroom starting in the next school year. That's after a bill passed the Senate this evening.
Yeah.
Gerald Harris live in the newsroom with this story. Gerald?
Yeah, Len, you may
Excellent.
remember last time the Texas legislature was in session, they passed a similar law requiring "In God We Trust" to be displayed in public schools. Now the Senate
Absolutely.
wants to add more religious items in schools. Senate Bill 1515 by North Texas Republican State Senator Phil King would require.
So, are you a Republican-only society? You're okay with forcing schools to display the Ten Commandments?
Hey, listen, when we were growing up, we did prayer in school. This is a nation under God. And if people don't like that, move to another nation. Okay, we can't go to other countries and change Christianity into Muslim countries. We can't move in the Middle East and say, hey, we're going to put 100 Christian
What
churches
about
here.
the people? Wait a minute. What about separation of church and state? Are you saying that was a lie?
Well, listen, it's separated a hell of a lot more after our era. We had a lot of
No,
prayer in
but,
schools.
but we're talking about a Republican-only country. Are you saying if the Republicans were in control of everything,
Yes.
separation of church and state would be a lie?
I think we just no, I don't think so. I think we just go back to what we grew up as, you and me. Come on, we did prayer in schools at basketball games.
Yeah, but we
We did the
didn't.
Pledge
Yeah,
of
but
Allegiance.
but that's not observing separation of church and state. When we grew up, it was a lie.
Well, we have freedom of religion. That's what we have in our United States, freedom of religion, right? But we are a nation under God. It's in all our courts. It's in all our courts. In God we trust. It's on our dollar bills we spend. Read our dollar bills. In God we trust. We're losing that aspect. We're losing that everywhere in the United States, and it's very sad. And we're
But we weren't
cowering
supposed to
down.
put snugs. We're losing it because we never were supposed to have it to begin with. They said
Why?
separation of church and state.
That's where I find the devil speaking. We got a lot of devil. We got a lot of evil coming in here. Yeah, listen, I feel like we have exorcised the demons. I don't know what the hell's going on. We're a nation under God. We prayed in schools. We prayed at football games. We prayed for good on everyone. Everyone. That's what Christianity is all about, is bringing everybody together. Now we have to cower down to the devils. We have to cower down to the people who don't believe. And that's what I
Okay,
believe in.
I got another one I want to run by you. By the way, folks, tap
You
the
got it.
screen, get your boy up to 75,000 likes. I appreciate you
You got
guys
it.
in here. Tap your screen.
Absolutely.
I want your opinion on this. Once again, as you stated, a Republican country. We need to get rid of the
Right.
liberals. How would you feel about this one?
Monday, a
Right.
bill in Colombia could make the death penalty a possible punishment for women in South Carolina who get an abortion.
News 13's Claire Purnell is live in our
Oh.
newsroom with what the bill changes and also reaction tonight from Planned Parenthood. Claire?
Bobby Megan,
No.
if this bill is passed, the new bill would make getting an abortion equivalent to committing homicide. House Bill 3549, or the South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023, was introduced to the State House last week by Representative Rob Harris of Spartanburg County. The bill was pre-filed back in December and is still sitting in the Judiciary Committee. Representative Harris says he moved to replace the Human Life Protection Act with the South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023.
What I did the other day is I took the opportunity.
Okay, he explains it, but are you in a
I
Republican
understand.
society? Do you support the possibility of executing a mother that has an abortion?
No. Okay, so no, I don't support that, and here's why. Okay, so I told you that we are Christians, right? So our sins are based on when we go to heaven. are judged by God. So what we do here on earth is judged by our Lord God, our God, right? So if what would why would we like? I don't believe in the death penalty. It's God who will judge us when we go to heaven,
Yeah,
right?
but most of the countries, most of the states in this country that have the death penalty are Republican states, aren't they?
Is that your thing? Have you studied that? You got
Yeah, I
receipts?
mean, most of the countries that execute people are down south. I mean, all of those southern states are the ones that have the death penalty. Those are the ones,
I
Oklahoma
believe
and
Trump doesn't believe in. I believe Trump doesn't believe in the death penalty. I know that. I know he said it on several factors. So if he was our president,
yeah.
we
Didn't
definitely would
didn't Trump
enforce that.
didn't Trump call for the execution of drug dealers?
Hmm. I think so. I think he did that. Yeah, you're right. He did
Yeah,
call for the execution
So,
of drug dealers.
so he obviously
Yeah, that.
does believe in killing people. Didn't he? The Central Park
Yeah,
Five, the guys who were exonerated and found to be innocent, he wanted them
right.
hung.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He wants some dead people. So no, I disagree that Trump doesn't
Yeah,
want
you're
the
right.
death penalty.
Yeah, I made an error on that one. I don't believe in the death penalty. So if President Snuggles, a Republican, becomes president, we definitely will not have the death penalty. It's up to God. God is two wrongs don't make a right. Um, when you do something bad in life, you have to make sure that you're going to face the God that you're going to in heaven, and you'll be judged there.
Okay. So now you're starting to realize that a Republican only society where they're executing women. So part of the Republican side you don't agree with either.
No, I do not agree with that in the state of Texas. I hope that does not go through. Women have a right to their own bodies and what they feel they're going to do. If they get an abortion, they'll face that in front of God. God will be the decider of everything. But the women, the women do not have, or the women do have the right to be able to decide what they need to do with their body at any time. I
Yeah,
don't agree with.
but you said
I
a
don't agree with
Republican.
9-month abortions. I don't agree with that unless their health was in jeopardy.
Yeah, but you're saying that we need to get rid of the Democrats and society will be better with Republicans. But now you're starting to talk about all this
Well,
Republican stuff.
The Democrats don't know how to run a country. I mean, that's what I mean. They don't know. I
Yeah, but
mean,
they're not executing.
how
Yeah, but
many
they're not
major
threatening that.
cities? I'm
They're
talking
not
about the
threatening to execute
Democrats.
anybody.
Most of our populations are the dense cities across this state, across the United States. They're not doing anything for their cities. They're not doing anything for the black communities. They're not doing anything with with violence. I mean, I'm in the city of Chicago. There's a plan tonight for teenagers to go and ruin the Millennium Park and ruin buildings and everything. I had a bad live this morning or this afternoon. It was horrible. But I'm going to tell you that people keep voting Democrat in their states, and if it's not working for them, why not vote Republican and see what happens? But it doesn't happen.
Well, let me ask you this in regards to violence in Democratic cities and not voting. We don't
The
talk much
major
about.
cities,
Okay, well, fair enough. In major cities, well, we don't talk much about poverty, but all of the dirt poor people tend to live in Republican areas. Any reason why they keep supporting the Republicans? 8 of the 10 poorest counties are in Kentucky, and they are deep red counties. Any idea why they keep voting Republican if poverty is a major issue?
I haven't looked into that one, and I thank you
It
for telling
doesn't
me that. I'm
come
going to
up,
do a little more
and
research.
the reason why is because it doesn't come up. We're focused on crime and in democratic cities, but
Right,
poverty, Americans that are uninsured healthcare wise and living in dirt
right,
poor lifestyles, all of that's happening in the right wing areas, and it
right,
doesn't come up. They don't talk about it. You talk
right,
about Chicago and New York, and people aren't dirt poor in
right.
Chicago.
Oh, well, I'm just talking about the cartel owned places are mostly in the major cities, the cartels. They did a map of it. I will have to go over that map one day, but it is in all the major cities across this country where it's cartel owned, and
I
it's
get
very
your point.
scary.
I get your point, but taking me from a cesspool of crime and dropping me off in an area where I'm dirt poor is not exactly an improvement. I mean, I get your point that the Democrats have a hell of a lot of crime in major cities, but going to Republican areas where it's dirt poor, that's not an improvement.
Are you just talking about Kentucky?
No, I'm talking about West Virginia. I'm talking about Mississippi. I'm talking about Alabama. I'm talking about deep red areas that are dirt poor all over the South. Oklahoma is one of the poorest states. It's all over the southern states or the
Hmm.
red states.
It's all over the United States because we have a
No.
democratically owned, we have a Democrat president. Okay, we have a Democratic Senate that's not doing anything, and we keep passing these bills that are creating our inflation to go higher and higher. Of course, our state's going to go. All our states are going belly up. So it doesn't matter what's going on. We need to turn it Republican. We had a good economy prior to this administration, and we had a smooth run. I mean, we're paycheck to paycheck right now. We weren't paycheck to paycheck prior to this administration. We weren't.
Well, I want one of the things I would love to talk to you in a future broadcast because I'm sure you're not aware of this, but West Virginia, one of the poorest states in the union, the citizens
Right.
of West Virginia, deep red state, got poorer under the Trump administration. I didn't invite you to look it up, verify it, make sure I
I'll
don't know
have
what
to
the
look
hell
that
I'm
up.
talking about. But there are
Yeah.
plenty of folks that did not benefit under the Trump administration financially.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
That I don't know about that, but Handsome, I always research, and I will definitely look that up on that part.
And we can certainly talk about it anytime. All right, well, I'm
Yeah.
moving on, Snuggles. Always a
Handsome, I
good
love you, man.
conversation.
I know we have opposite types of political views, but I love you, man. And I thank you for having me as your guest as well. I hope you visit me too as well. It's great. I wish we would all get along like this in the comment sections. We're all Americans at the end of the day, and I really want
Well,
us to.
100% agree. Always a pleasure talking to you. But one of the
Okay.
ways we're going to get along, you can't say you want to eradicate the damn country of Democrats. That ain't going to help.
Okay, I was talking a little trash. I was talking a little
All right.
trash.
Fair
Okay.
enough. Fair enough.
All
But come
right,
on
my
back
friend.
in
Have a good
anytime.
one. God bless you, man. God bless you.
You too. You too. You
Peace.
too. All right.
All right.
Looking in the. I always enjoy talking to Snugs. He's one of the few folks that I certainly go visit his lives as well. He leans. I mean, he is right wing as you can tell, but nevertheless, it's not about us always agreeing. That's what we do here, is that we allow folks to speak from both sides of the aisle. By the way, if this is what you enjoy, civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle, whether we agree or not, without any fear of being censored or banned, follow the program. This is what we do generally. Monday through Friday, I'm on here during the day, so it's usually 11:30, 11:45 to about 2 o'clock. So that's when I do my. I'm not normally on here on Sunday evenings. This is kind of an impromptu, but yeah, if this is what you enjoy, yeah, show your boy some love. Follow the program. Helps out the algorithms. As I say on every broadcast, the program is and always will remain MAGA friendly. I lean left, but the program is MAGA friendly. I definitely believe that conservatives, Republicans, particularly MAGA, do not always get a fair shake in the media. So I always make it clear that here you will always be allowed to speak, whether I agree with you or not. Because at the end of the day, there's a hell of a lot of folks that think I'm ignorant, do not agree with me, and I don't want to be censored or banned. So why the hell would I do it to someone else? So understand you can speak here. Looking in the comments. Well, if they keep watching Fox News, Max, and allowing themselves to lie, it's hard. Well, I will tell you this, and I agree, Andy, that if you watch only one type of media, it will certainly skew your judgment. I mean, I watch a lot of Fox, and I watch some CNN. I don't watch MSNBC, but I know MSNBC is way further to the left than even CNN. I mean, if you watch MSNBC, everything about Trump is negative. If you watch Fox News, for instance, up till the Dominion lawsuit, everything about Trump was positive. Everything. Now, because he's cost their network $750 million, they're finally like, maybe this dude don't have all the answers. Shout out to Kanye West. But before, yeah, it was all pro-Trump. So you kind of have to watch a balance of it. You can't just watch one particular news outlet because they are going to skew the news. Like, for instance, because I've been watching Fox probably around 20 years or so, I personally have started having a negative viewpoint to some degree in regards to African Americans because there is so much bad shit on Fox about black people. Sometimes I have to turn it off and watch some other channel that's going to show you a graduating class of African Americans or somebody that's black that's got a job. Because if you watch Fox News, it is all negative. And I have pointed that out, like with the gentleman that shot the guy, the Jarl, whatever, the 16-year-old through the door or whatever. His grandson has came out and stated this guy used to sit around. My grandfather sat around watching Fox News all the time. I would totally understand that. I don't support racism or support intolerance, but I could totally understand anybody that sits around watching that channel all day having that opinion. You see children or black teens taking over shopping malls and Walmart. They run that stuff all day, every day on that channel. If I was sitting there watching that and only that all the time, I would think that black people are the worst thing on earth. I totally understand it because they do make a mockery of African. It is literally 100% negative. It's that bad. They admitted they lied in court. What more does the MAGAs need to hear? Well, in regards to Fox News, I'll go back to the box shortly, but in regards to Fox News admitting they lied in court and asking what more does MAGA need to hear, they don't believe when Fox News said they lied, they don't believe that they actually lied. They believe that there are forces in play that Fox News sold out to and lied to protect those forces. So they believe admitting that they lied was a lie, suggesting that when they said Dominion did what Dominion supposedly did, that Fox News was telling the truth then, and they recanted their story and claimed to be lying because something else had them at bay. That's what a lot of folks on the right believe. I've heard it. Looking in the comments, gaslighting again. Yeah, I love your show, Tim. Morning show better. Get some guests in here. Police officer Glorio. Well, the morning show, I generally have about 2 to 3 times as many people. Sometimes we're generally hovering 1,000 to 1,500 guests. Well, it's because I've developed that audience. I'm on every day, Monday through Friday. I haven't done a Sunday evening show in months. So no one's expecting me to be here. So that's kind of why the numbers are a bit lower. But there's 400 plus of you in here. And if some of you would tap the screen, get your boy maybe up to 85,000 likes, might bring in more folks. My preferred guests are MAGA. All right, we'll keep it going. Are we watching the same Fox? I don't think so. Fox in Warren is great. Chris Warden, yeah, we're watching the same Fox. I mean, I know most of Fox lineup. You know, whether I'm sitting there watching, what is Harrison Ford's program? I cannot think of the name of it. But then it's a roundtable type program, but they're sitting on the couch. I can't think of the name of that right now. But then she has another program after that. Obviously, there's Tucker, followed by Ingram, followed by Hannity. I've been watching it since it was Bill O'Reilly, Hannity, Combs, and who else? Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity always had the last slot, but it was Bill O'Reilly. Megyn Kelly was in the middle. Yeah, I've been watching it for a long ass time. Glenn Beck, I saw him on Before the Five, and before Glenn Beck, it was John Gibson, The Big Story. So I've been watching Fox a long time, and I can tell you that network runs a lot of anti-black media. Just watch what's on there. Look how many times they show you some bad shit happening in Chicago that features black people. You think that stuff isn't happening in Memphis or some of these other Republican states, St. Louis, Baton Rouge, that are all the murder cap? No, they run Chicago over and over and over again because Chicago is liberal through and through. Liberal mayor, liberal governor of the state. It can be tied to Obama. It has tough gun laws. It literally it's a bastion of liberalism. So it makes a great target. But the shit that's happening in Chicago is happening in Houston. It's happening in Memphis, Baton Rouge, St. Louis, Little Rock. That stuff's happening in those other cities. It's just, you got a lot of those areas where you can have no problem getting a gun. The governor's Republican, and it doesn't fit the narrative. So they keep staying with Chicago. Looking in the comments here. Baltimore is liberal, so they're going to go after Baltimore. They aren't pulling Walmarts out, my guy. I don't believe that. Just because you don't know about it does not mean it isn't happening. You don't think citizens in Memphis or St. Louis or some of these other dirt poor cities are capable of committing huge amounts of shoplifting at Walmart? You're going to hear about it in Chicago because they're focused on Chicago. I would submit to you that I feel fairly confident that Walmart pulling out because they've had a high amount of shoplifting has happened in other cities other than just Chicago or San Francisco. It's happened other places. You're just not going to hear about it on those networks. Let me go back to the box. I'll try Usberg again. We tried him earlier. The app is sometimes playing games, so can't bring on guesses like I want to, but we'll try it. Usher,
Uzber.
Okay, that's a unique name. All right, so I take it you've been listening in because I saw I tried to get you on earlier. Where am I getting it wrong?
I have a headache, man, just listening in. to Snugs.
What did he get wrong? What did he say that gave you the headache?
Talking about he wants a whole Republican nation and then not even realizing what Republicans are actually pushing, man. Are you fucking kidding me? God damn, bro.
Well, but the thing about it is, some of it is extreme, so extreme that even true blue conservatives, like for instance, executing women that have an abortion. There's a lot of conservatives that probably don't even realize some folks are going that far to the right.
But it's real. It's happening.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it is definitely
for
real.
you to say, sit there and say, man, everything needs to be Republican, every state, every country, the whole country. And then when you hear what they're doing, it's like, oh, I don't agree with that. What the hell are you talking about then?
So what about the notion? I'm seeing it all in the comments. Folks are saying the Democrats are destroying the country. How do you respond to that?
Man, I'm the type of person that I don't see. That's why we vote and stuff. That's why we have a democracy. Each topic, each thing, we vote on it. You know what I'm saying? And of course, yeah, I understand we have a representative and stuff, which I don't agree on anymore. I believe we have the technology now to be able to vote ourselves. We shouldn't have representatives to be voting on every single thing like we used to, man. The technology we have today, we should be able to vote ourselves, man, for the majority of things.
Yeah, that would be nice. The more options you get, the better off you are.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, do you see any validity into the belief that Democrats are destroying cities?
Nah, I don't see it, man. You know what? Anytime you have two sides to every city, every state, because you still have two sides in every city and every state, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to push anything strong through, but somehow, man, like these Republicans, that's what I do see. Like they're pushing some serious stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? That really does take rights away from us and stuff like that. So yeah, it always ends up coming back to, in my view, like, which is the stronger evil, you know what I'm saying? And to me, it's just Republicans, man. I can't get away from it, man.
What about in terms of securing the border? Because I'm asking you this because I've seen a really interesting comment, and I'm gonna let you run with this any way you want to. The Don 666 in the comments said, "Is us Uzber talking about you? Is Uzber a legal Mexican?" How do you respond to that?
I don't know. I don't even know what that means. What does it mean?
He's suggesting that you might be of Mexican descent and in the country illegally.
Okay. No, I've been third generation.
Well, obviously, it's because of your accent, and I would say that the question is somewhat intolerant. I mean, it sounds like a racist question in my opinion. It just hears somebody with a Hispanic accent.
I'm in Texas. I'm in Texas, where the majority of the people here, where I'm at, you know what I'm saying? They speak Spanish at home and English from education, you know what I'm saying? So the majority of people here speak what we call Spanglish, you know what I'm saying? Half English, half Spanish. You have to, man. I mean, everybody speaks Spanish and English here, you know what I'm saying? So
well, let me just say this in regards to what I asked you. Now, in the comments, the same person, the Don, said if you are illegal, you can't talk for Americans and you can't vote. And Scott Kennan followed up by saying it's not racist. The reason I suggested it's racist is because you hear the man speak, and he sounds like he is Hispanic descent. and immediately your first jump is to he must be in the country illegally. That's why it sounds like a racist comment. He's like the man said, I'm third generation. Why does his accent immediately make you go all the way to he must be committing a crime and entering the country illegal? That's where the racism part comes in. You made a horrible assumption on this guy just simply because of his accent. If that's not racism, I don't know what is. I mean, just because he speaks with a Hispanic accent, that means he must have committed a crime and came into the country. That shouldn't have came up. That part should not have come up. That's why it's a racist comment. Anyway,
Yeah,
Usper, I don't know what else to do with it, but I heard him say that, so I wanted to run
yeah,
it by
but
you.
you know what, man? It's like these are very ignorant people, man. They're very ignorant. This is the way they want to come across, you know what I'm saying? They don't have nothing real to say or anything like that. And they want to, like, as soon as he heard me like leaning towards Democrat, you know what I'm saying? I'm not a Democrat really, just for these past years, man. Ever since Donald Trump, I mean, I can't avoid it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what the hell, man? This guy's freaking sick. You know
Well,
what I'm saying? Like,
but I have to ask you, in regards to President Trump, what is it about President Trump as a voter that would really turn you off to him?
just pretty much about everything.
You got to give me some examples, though. You can't throw
Well,
a
if
blanket
look,
statement out
man,
there like that.
look, if you look at my label right here, it says INFJ.
Yeah.
So INFJs is the rarest personality in the world, right? So what we do as an INFJ, our personality, man, we look at people for what they really are. You know what I'm saying? You can't put it past us. You can't pretend to be somebody else. You can't lie to us. You can't, like, nothing, man. The bullshit, we have a bullshit meter like you would not believe. You know what I'm saying? And when I see Donald Trump, it's like he's off the scales, man. You know what I'm saying? So if this guy were to tell me the sky is blue, I would fucking be scared, man.
So
Like,
you don't
how?
trust him for a moment.
Right. It's like, what
Yeah.
the fuck, man? Is the sky not blue anymore? What the hell's going on? I got to look into this shit. You know what I'm saying?
How do you
This
feel
guy,
about Biden?
Biden, I think it's like everybody says, man. I mean, he's old. You know what I'm saying? The country wants somebody young, man, in order to see real change. But Biden is in there. He's somebody that knows how to work with both sides, man. And so he's going to get what he can done. He's not in full control. You know that, man. You know what I'm saying? Republicans are hardcore against him. He's going to have a lot of trouble passing a lot of stuff. I don't know how he got a lot of the stuff passed, man, that he did. I mean, really.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Damn, it's America,
Yeah.
bro.
It ain't
How he
easy. It
even
ain't
got a
easy.
lot of this stuff done, I have no idea, man.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, man. Uthman, this is our first time talking?
I think I came in one time, bro, but I agreed with what you were saying, so I just came in to show you some support and stuff like that.
Well, damn, I appreciate that. Don't be a stranger. Come on back in anytime, man.
Yeah, but I see you, man.
Good talk. Good talk. Now, in the comments, to continue on with I think it was the Don was saying, well, the reason you brought that up is because he had a strong Hispanic accent, kind of strong for a third generation, and because a lot of them are coming into the country illegally. Well, if you watch Fox News, a lot of African Americans are committing crimes. Do you look at me? Is that the first thing you think of? Is when is the last time I rampaged through a Walmart? This is why I'm suggesting that that's an intolerant comment. I mean, if I look at television and I see a hell of a lot of police beating the hell out of people that don't deserve it, would you then suggest that I should also feel like all police are like that? So it's a racist comment. Hopefully you branch out of that, but yeah, hearing somebody with a Hispanic accent and the first thing comes to mind is they must be in the country illegally is just bad juju. That's really bad. And whether him having a strong Hispanic accent for a third generation Mexican, well, your accent is based on who you are around. If he's third generation, that means second and first generation people are going to be his parents and grandparents who came from the other country. They're the ones that teach him how to speak the language. It takes a little time for the accent to go away. I mean, you can't just jump to the man came into the country illegally and say, well, that ain't racist. That's a horrible comment to make. That's all I'm gonna say. That is a horrible comment. Hopefully it stays here on TikTok and don't do that. Don't do that to folks beyond this. Like I said, I don't block, ban, or censor anyone. I like to have civilized dialogue with both sides of the aisle. If I can offer you an opinion that I think may help you, and I hope that you can offer me the same, let's do it. But yeah, anyone that has that mindset, you hear somebody speaking with a Hispanic accent and you just jump to they must be committing crimes. Don't do that. Don't do that. It opens up the door for people to call you a racist. And by the way, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, none of you folks are familiar with Sheriff Joe, particularly my beloved MAGA. You know who Sheriff Joe Arpaio is. He was doing that by law, literally by law. Anybody that looks like they're Hispanic, you're free to stop them and demand paperwork, which means you're stopping guys like who we just talked to. He looks like a Hispanic. He's down in Arizona near the border. It's free to stop him and demand paperwork. That's clearly a violation of the Bill of Rights. That's clearly a civil rights violation. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, ordering his sheriffs to do that, was charged with violation of civil rights. He not only was charged, he was found guilty and was due to be sentenced to prison for doing it. President Trump pardoned him. Looking in the comment section, I would definitely vote Trump any day over Biden. Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. There's reasons to vote for both sides. Going back to the box, Alomar. Alma, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Almalar? Okay, we'll make it happen. Though. Invite me in the box. Those that don't like Trump, pack your shit and move out. Tazer. That is about the most unpatriotic statement an American citizen could ever make. Those that don't like Trump, pack your shit and move out. In a free country where we all have freedom of speech, if you say something I don't like, I want you to pack your shit and leave your homeland. Where is the freedom in that? Where is the patriotism in that? That's about as Russian communistic dictator-like as you can be. If you say something I don't like, I want you to pack your shit and leave your homeland. The party of freedom, the pro-constitution, literally the First Amendment gives you the right to do exactly that. You're starting out violating the very First Amendment in the Constitution, freedom of speech. If you don't like Trump, pack your shit and move out. We just had a guest on, a couple callers back, talking about what the country would be like, how much better it would be if all Republicans were in control. If you don't like Trump, pack your shit and move out. That's a Republican. That's a Republican saying that. And I'm going to assume most of you guys don't, most of my folks on the right don't agree with that. But nevertheless, that is a Republican. That is a Trump supporter saying if you don't like the man, you should leave your homeland. Wow. All right, looking in the comments, how long will it be before Tennessee decides women can't wear pants? I don't think Tennessee will ever get to that point, but if Tennessee has women walking around butt-ass naked, I might have to go relocate for a minute. All right, let me go back into the comment section, or better yet, to the box. By the way, Chris is in the comment section saying invite me into the box. That's not how it works. You actually put in the request and I pick you out. I don't send out the invites. It works a different way. We'll keep it moving, though. One Chevy. All right, if you don't like tacos, leave the country. Very funny. Good evening.
How's everything hanging?
Huh?
I said, how's everything hanging? It's been a minute since we've talked.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. We were originally talking about this so-called Convention of the States. Are you familiar with this?
Extremely familiar, and that's the reason I have been waiting so long to get on. Not only have I been on the petition for several years, I have spoke directly with a lot of the members that are pushing for the convention. There is a lot of misrepresentation going on about what is what the convention is calling for and how the convention actually works. Okay,
Elaborate.
to call for a convention, you have to have 34 states pass out of both legislations to call for a convention. You have to have 38 states agree to that amendment before it will pass as an amendment. It was the founders' way of going around our government. Right now, there are 19 states that have passed in both chambers. There are 15 states that have legislation as of this year coming up to vote on it. There are 7 states that have passed it in one chamber and are awaiting the second chamber to pass it. The
So this
things
is
that
a real possibility then.
Yes. And honestly, I hope so, because I will read, this is coming directly from their site, what I'm about to read you. What our convention would only allow the states to discuss amendments that limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, impose physical restraints, and place term limits on federal officials. That is the 3 things they are pushing for. The physical restraints, meaning controlling the purse strings of the government to try to get our national debt down. I don't think
Here's my
anybody
response. Here's my response to that. In regards to those 3 things, my response would be those are the 3 things they are telling you. I just like when it came to getting those Supreme Court justices appointed, they told us and led us to believe Roe versus Wade wouldn't come up. They say that, but once they get in there and they can, just like when the liberals say that we only want to do this or do that when it comes to gun rights. You guys don't believe that. You believe that any stepping stone that you allow the liberals to do is going to be a stepping stone to taking away your gun rights completely. We look at this the same way. That's what they're telling us now. But if they
Yeah,
actually make this happen, it's going to go well beyond that.
and I understand that completely. But you're not going to get 34 or 38 states to agree to ban guns. You're not going to get 38 states to agree to secede from the union. It's not going to happen.
I don't want to
You
trust that. I hear you. You could be 100% correct, but I know for a fact when we were looking at these Supreme Court justices, rolling back Roe versus Wade was not going to happen, and we see it.
Here is some of the states that have it on their legislation for this year. Wisconsin has passed it. Indiana has passed it. New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maine, uh, New Jersey, Maryland, Kentucky, Illinois, Kansas, Colorado, Montana, and Washington all have it on their books to be voted on this year.
Okay.
So you're talking 2/3 of the country, and that includes very Democratic or liberal states that are on this that would have to agree on these amendments before they could ever be amended.
My thing is this: what are we trying to do that needs a whole new amendment? Like, what do you see out there that we need to do in regards to the Constitution? Where do you see the Constitution needing to be amended?
Term limits on Congress. Because the reason I say this, the simple fact, it is a proven fact that an incumbent has a 70 to 80% better chance of getting reelected than somebody that is trying to kick them out of the chair.
Yeah, but they cannot get reelected unless you vote for them. I brought this up earlier when I used
But
Nancy Pelosi.
people don't do their research, and people just
Well,
vote through. Which, by the way, I have been listening, and I have screamed at the phone probably 10 times. If you believe Democrats or Republicans, either one, are in it for your best interest, and that includes Trump, you're delusional.
but that's what I'm saying, though, is that if you believe the power should be given to the people and not big government, if the people of Kentucky want to keep voting in Mitch McConnell or the people of California want to keep voting in Nancy Pelosi, that is what the choice they're making. What you're saying is you want to take the power of the people away and make the government impose what you
No.
call term limits on them. If you want term limits, just stop voting for the same dude. The
What
people
I
already have the power to
millions and
impose term limits. You don't need the government to make it so you can't vote for them. Just don't vote for them.
well, I agree, but again, there's a lot of people that don't do their research. What I want to take away is the tens of millions of dollars that is given to the candidates by the Republican convention and by the Democratic convention to push ads and put up billboards and stuff in those states to where it's a mind game. You see that name repetitively over and over and over. When you go to the ballot box and you see that name, you check it.
I still don't. Here's the problem I have. If we are for getting rid of government and giving the power back to the people, you're making the excuse that, well, the people are so dumb, they keep voting for the same guy that we got to make the government step in and force them not to have that person as an option. As a voter, I don't want the government telling me I'm too dumb to pick a candidate. If they keep voting for this guy, they obviously want him in.
I'm not saying anyone is dumb. I would not do that because that would hurt your life.
But that's what you
I
just
know a
said. You
lot-
said they're not doing their homework. They're not paying. They're looking at the same billboard over and over again. And you are saying that. You're saying they're
What
basically
I'm
cheap.
saying is people are misinformed, just like your callers earlier about the convention of the states. One of them, I cannot remember her name, and I truly apologize. I hope she's still in here. Was talking about secession. She had heard it was for secession from the United States. There is nothing in that in the paperwork anywhere, and you can go on their website, Convention of the States, and you can actually see what has been filed, what paperwork has been filed in those
Yeah,
states.
but that goes. Yeah, and I understand that, but that goes back to my original pushback about the gun rights and them taking taking an inch, giving them a mile or whatever. If you have the liberals put down on paper what they want to do with gun rights, you're not going to believe what they put down is where they're going to stop it. You're going to immediately say, listen, if we agree to this, they're going to do something else. That's the way we look at the Convention of States, is that what you have on that paper is incomplete. That's why we're pushing back.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that, but one of your commenters just said something that kind of resonated about the money. You're given a choice between a Democrat and a Republican. There are libertarians that have run on the ballot that would be amazing presidents or amazing congresspeople. And because they're not getting those tens of millions of dollars that the incumbent is getting, you never hear their name. You never see anything about them. And you're literally given the choice, okay, you either have to vote Republican or you have to vote Democrat. That's your options.
I don't see how a convention of the states is going to take money out of politics. Anybody voting to take money out of politics, the politicians, the lobbyists who buy politicians are going to buy off the voters so that they don't do that. If I can buy off a politician, I can certainly buy off voters. When it comes down to it, it's not going to happen. There's a reason why money is in politics. It's because everybody has a price. And the people who are used to lobbying will find what your price is.
Okay. Where would we disagree on bringing down the national debt? Or where would we disagree on putting term limits and taking some of the money out of politics?
In terms of taking money out of politics, this is the reason why I believe that'll never work. If I want money to remain in politics, because let's say I'm a Koch brother or I'm George Soros or I'm somebody who's used to buying off politicians, and I know in this local area they're trying to take money out of politics, and I want it to stay there. I'll build a factory in that area or promise to move Disney World, whatever I got to do to that area to get people to vote on my side. And like I said, everybody has a price. When you got money, you can find it. I just don't think at the end of the day you're going to take money out of politics. It's there for a reason. It's because people are getting bought off.
I do not disagree with you one bit on that. And that's the reason, just like I said earlier, if you think Democrats are Republicans, and that includes Trump, is in it for your betterment, you're delusional.
Well, Trump said he's for the people. He didn't take a salary. Real quick in the comments, John, I appreciate that Panther cloth. Thank you. Haven't seen much coming in. Thank you very much. But in regards to you suggesting Trump is not for people either, he claims that he's not a typical politician. And, you know, appreciate
I
that.
agree. He's not a typical politician, but at the same time, I believe the last time me and you spoke, we were speaking about Trump, and it's like I told you then, and I stand behind it now. Trump is an arrogant, narcissistic asshole. Do I believe a lot of his policies are good? Yes. Do I believe some of the things he done were bad? Yes. But at the end of the day, Trump is for Trump.
So why do you think there's so many people that think Trump is for the country? You know, they bring up that he didn't take a salary. He's not for himself. He didn't even take money. They believe that Trump is for the people.
Well, I will say this. Trump is the only president that has lost money being in the presidential office.
Yeah, but that ain't because of nothing but how he acted. By the way, John, thank you, John. Appreciate that. He lost money simply because he was an asshole. Because if he had maintained a good rapport, his hotels and businesses and golf clubs and golf country clubs, all of that stuff would have done very well. It's because of how he was treating people in regards to why he lost money.
Oh, I agree. But here's my thing. I would like somebody to do the research and give me one congressperson, whether it be Republican or Democrat, that look at their salary that they make every year and explain to me how somebody that makes 150,000 a year or 200,000 a year within 3 years can be a multimillionaire if they're not dealing under the table dirty. And that's
I can explain that to you right away. And John, you just got me. You're touching the hell out of me with John. Man, thank you. I can explain that to you real easy. When you look at NCAA college sports up until a few years ago, they by law could not take money. Yet many of them were being enriched through backdoor channels. Fact is, when you can provide something that people really want and need, they will find a way to funnel wealth to you. So even if you became a congressperson and you truly wanted to do good by the country and you didn't want to get rich, you just really wanted to do good. Then you got a child that has college tuition that needs to be paid off, or you got somebody that can't afford their medical bills. And there's always going to be a politician or a lobbyist that's going to say, well, if you don't want it, I heard that your kid is having a hard time paying their tuition, or I hear one of your uncles had heart surgery and he can't afford it. People are going to throw money at you to the point where it's hard to turn it down when you're getting paid what a congressperson gets paid. I don't think at the end of the day it's possible to take money out of that.
But at the same time, that ought to be illegal.
Even if it's illegal, I just gave you examples of how to get around it. Look at what the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is doing. There's always going to be ways to get around it. If you don't here's a perfect example. In American prisons, they have black market ways of moving money around. Even if it doesn't benefit the prisoner, then I'll send it to your mom. I'll send it to your brother. I mean, there are always going to be ways to get money and wealth to you. There's no way to stop that.
I agree. I agree with it. But the one thing I will say, and then I will get off here and let you move on with your box. And thank you for the time, by the way. Everybody, there's 375 people in here right now. People, please do your research. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to this handsome liberal right here. Do your research, and don't do it through Fox News or through CNN. Actually dig, just like with the convention. Go to their website and actually read the bill that has been proposed to these states.
Fair enough. Heather Mommy, thank you. I will say this before I let you go. I do encourage folks to do their own research, but the last thing I want is some convention telling me, I don't think you did enough research. So I'm going to pass a law and I'm going to make decisions for you, because at the end of the day, we all do our research based on our own beliefs, our own opinions and things like that. So the last thing I want is some government entity telling me, you didn't do enough research in my eyes. So we're going to pass this law to control this or that. I mean, you should be able to vote how you vote based on what you want to vote for, not have some government entity tell you, well, you should be looking over here and making a decision. It's kind of like the whole under the Trump administration, it was often you shouldn't vote based on your feelings. You should vote you don't get to decide what makes a person vote. I've said that before, even when the Trump administration, like if you're messing with people's feelings, then you're gonna cause people to vote based on that. If you don't want people voting on their feelings, don't fuck with their feelings. It's that simple. But I appreciate you coming in, Chevy.
Hey, brother, anytime, and it's great talking to you. I promise.
Absolutely, absolutely. Come on back anytime. All right, looking. It's facts don't care about your feelings. Liberals are emotional thinkers. America. Well, the Don. This is where President Trump not being a typical politician could hurt him. If let's say you're correct, where liberals are emotional and they vote based on their feelings. Let's say that's true. Well, if you are a politician and you know you need liberal votes to actually get reelected, you know what makes liberals vote. Then you go and you try to get votes by doing that. If you know they vote based on their feelings, then why the hell would you piss them off in that category? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I know personally, even though I'm not very religious, I know a lot of Republicans vote based on their religion. The last thing I would do if I was running for office is start fucking with things on their religion. Why would you go and deliberately do things to hurt yourself to the voters? This is where not being a typical politician makes President Trump look kind of ignorant. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to mess with people's feelings. You don't even have to do that. He literally went into a category and started insulting people, costing themselves votes that was unnecessary. Now, if I have to tell you something that hurts your feelings that is necessary, it is what it is. You know, at the end of the day, there are too many African Americans using racism as a crutch. That might hurt some people's feelings, but that's a fact. Pocahontas is not necessary. Crazy Bernie, Sleepy Joe, that's not necessary. Now you're hurting feelings simply for pleasure, just simply to be a fucking bully. It costs you votes. That's what a non-typical politician would do something like that. A typical politician is smarter. He knows what the people are looking for. And he doesn't go and deliberately cross that line when there's no capital to be gained. Looking in the comments, they don't have to give a marriage certificate if they don't feel acceptable in Tennessee. Is that true? Where if the legislators in Tennessee feel that they don't like who you're marrying? I haven't heard that. Forget your feelings, says Otis Anderson. That's never going to happen. You're never going to go through life hurting people's feelings and expecting no type of recourse for it. It's just, I don't care how productive you are in your place of employment. If you go around and deliberately hurt the feelings of your employers, you probably are not going to have a job. You're not going to show up when they're writing you up or threatening to terminate you and saying, well, look at all these great numbers I put up. If you're walking around the floor being an asshole, they're going to fire you simply based on feelings. That's going to happen almost anywhere you go. You're not going to be productive and just have everybody in the office divided and hating each other, and you just get to stay there because you're productive. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Trump talked himself out of a job. That's what I look at it like. Because I do believe on paper he deserved a second term. But this fuck your feelings thing makes no sense at all. As a politician, your job is to sell yourselves to the people. It's not the other way around. We as people employ the politicians. They do not employ us. We are their employers. If they are doing something we don't like and we ask them to stop and they respond with fuck your feelings, then we get rid of them. I think that's one of the issues that folks on the right fail to realize is that we don't work for Trump. He works for us. So if he's going around telling us, well, I don't give a shit about how you feel, that's not very conducive with getting reelected. That's what being a non-typical politician can lead you to do, is lose touch with who actually is in charge. I think he forgot about that. Yet these are the same people that got butthurt over a beer. Wow, that's a hell of a comeback, Dire Wolf. That is true. That is true. Is that if you can't complain about feelings when you out here shooting cans of Bud Light. That is a really, really good comeback. I wasn't even thinking about that shit. The TF, he deserved his second term after he mishandled the pandemic. He did mishandle the pandemic, and I'll tell you, in my humble opinion, why. The number one thing a politician wants to run off of if they're seeking re-election is the economy. The economy before the pandemic under Trump was really good. So in his effort to get reelected, that was going to be his number one baby. Look at the economy under me. Are you not better off than you were when I came in office? And once the medical professionals started telling him to shut everything down because of the pandemic, there was no denying that the economy was going to take a huge hit with everything closed. So what Trump was trying to do is maintain his baby, the economy, while also listening to the medical professionals and doing what he was being told was in the best interest of the country. So he was trying to balance between keeping the country open and maintaining the economy while also trying to listen to the medical professionals. There's no way to do that successfully. That's where the chaos came in. So now you got Fauci on TV, standing with Fauci, making it look like you guys are unified. Then at night you're holding rallies and letting people yell, "Fire Dr. Fauci." So he definitely mishandled the pandemic because he was literally talking out the side of his neck. He's trying to balance the economy and balance the orders he's been given for the pandemic. You can't do them both at the same time. So, but that is why that was happening. He was trying to maintain the economy while trying to also listen to the FDA, the CDC, the WHO, and all of that. And there's just no way of doing it. And at the end of the day, he chose to go astray from those organizations, which made it look worse. He was saying use bleach, says Sadie. Okay, I'm gonna leave that one alone. All right, let me keep it moving. Hard Dickens cider. I do remember disinfectant. Okay, Hard Dickens cider. Good evening.
Good evening. How's it going?
It's going good if I use some bleach, apparently.
Yeah, on your countertop.
Yeah, right. Did you hear that part where Trump was? Do you believe he was instructing people to consider using bleach?
No, I think there was some stuff taken out of context.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're taking your medical advice from a politician, you're a dumbass, first of all. Secondly, I think that was taken out of context. I think when they were talking about UV lights and stuff like that will kill bacteria and so on and so forth. And you know what? I mean, we do it to Biden. You know, something comes out of your mouth that ain't 100%. We're gonna beat you up over it. So I ain't even mad when people.
That's a very fair, you know, I'm really glad you said that. That's a very fair way of putting that, is that it happens from both sides. And yeah, if Biden says a slip or makes a gaffe, the other side's going to do the same thing.
And on that note, you know, I wasn't necessarily a fan of Obama when he was in office. We've had this conversation before when we gave presidents grades. I think I was F for Bush, B for Obama, a C or a D, I think, for Trump. And then right now Biden's getting a big fat F. But anyways.
Wait, you give Trump a C or a D. Wow, I didn't think it was, I don't remember it being that low.
You know what? Honestly, I think it's gotten lower after he left.
Damn. Why?
Maturity, professionalism, you know, not everything comes to light during somebody's presidency, right?
True.
Would I rather have him than Biden? Yeah. Do I think he's our best fucking choice? That's what I think a lot of people who are on the right lose a lot of the ground that they're speaking on, is they think he's the best. And it's like, at that point, yes, you are treating him kind of cultish, like a god, you know. Did he do a good job? I think so. Yeah, he dropped the ball in the pandemic, but otherwise speaking, he did a good job. But he's not the best out of 330 million people. You know
what about DeSantis?
He's got his baggage too. I mean, do I think he's very smart? Yes. Do I think he would run a good economy? Yes. Do I think we would be just as divisive now as under Biden and Trump. Yeah.
But let me ask you this: if it came down to which actually might happen, if it comes down to DeSantis versus Trump in the primary, where would you go?
I'm probably going to go with DeSantis because I think, you know what, even when you've got, let's just say you've got, like, this is a weird analogy, I'm just winging it as I say it. You got a family member, they're a good person, right? You know what I mean? But they've done something wrong. Even at that point, you might tell that family member, hey, it's time to move on. We're just not going to have you at Thanksgiving anymore, right? And it's just for the better of the family. Even though, like, you might go have a beer with the dude later, or me and you might not. We might have coffee with him. But you know what I'm saying? But he's still not coming to Thanksgiving, right? And I kind of feel that way about Trump, where it's like, you know what? Hey, I think you would fulfill another good term, but the country is just ready to move on from you.
Mm. Well, there are several Republicans running. What about some of the other folks? Pence, Nikki Haley, I think Tim Scott's in it. Even Larry Elder, Sununu's about to run. Chris Christie is very likely to get in. Does any of them sound any better?
Well, I know a lot of people don't think Tulsi Gabbard's a real Republican, but I'm just telling you right now, look at all the ugly mugs that have been in that office. Let's put a good-looking one in there. You know what I mean? Just,
I think Nikki Haley's actually kind of attractive, though.
I give her the business. Put them both in. Put them both in.
Okay.
But if you
All
don't
right,
mind,
so go ahead.
The reason I threw my request in, if you didn't mind talking about this, but it's your live, I threw it in when you were talking about Republicans and minimum wage. And, I think when you talk to somebody rational on the right, they're going to say what I'm about to say. Yeah, wages have not gone up with cost of living. Absolutely. But when you make a drastic change, has anybody who makes under $20 an hour, under 25 really, got any more buying power in the last 2 years? No, because their wages have went up exponentially, and so have the cost of goods, because they determine the cost of goods, that labor force.
But here's the difference, though. The inflation rate is temporary. If you're working at a job and you make $20 an hour, they're not going to demote you. So I do believe that, let's say Trump gets elected or a Republican gets elected or even if Biden gets the economy back on track, that raise you got is going to remain. So your buying power will, because if we had left Trump in office, let's say Trump continued doing what he was doing, the economy stayed the same. Minimum wage is not going to ever move under a Republican. They're not in favor of that. So they're literally leaving it up to the employer to decide if they want to give you a raise or not. And I think the way this country has been ran over the last generation or so shows that if you leave it up to the employers, they're not going to give people raises. So that's where, even though under Biden, inflation has went up and salaries have went up significantly as well, I would rather have someone give me a higher wage, even with the inflation, because I know the inflation is temporary.
Right. And I mean, anytime you get an all or nothing answer from somebody, it's going to be wrong. Do I think minimum wage needs to be down at $7.50 or whatever the hell it was a couple years ago? No, of course not.
It still is. It hasn't changed. It still is down there.
And then when you look at kind of the market sorting itself out, right? Well, people needed labor, so they were willing to pay you $20 an hour to stand in line at Chick-fil-A and take orders, right? Like, but everything has gone up. And so what a better solution would be than, minimum wage just has to be $15 an hour. Why don't you put a mandatory cost of living adjustment in every year?
Yeah, but the Republicans won't support any of that stuff. We would have had a mandatory cost of living adjustment if you left it up to the Democrats. The fact is, the Republicans don't want the salary to be adjusted at all.
Well, you're going to have an easier time selling a 5% annual cost of living increase than you will go from 7 to 15.
Well, the reason it's going from 7 to 15 is that the Republicans have been resisting the 5% increases for years. If we
Yeah.
had been given a 5% increase, we wouldn't need to jump all the way from 7 to 15. We'd probably be jumping from 14 to 15. But we've allowed them to resist change for so many years continuously that you need to jump that big to catch up. Before I continue, I will ask folks to tap the screen. I appreciate you guys have already given me way more likes than I deserve. But real quick in the comments, I did a poll. I wanted to ask this question. You guys respond to the poll. Let's say, for instance, Trump, for some reason, health, criminal, or just got pissed off with the witch hunts, decided he was not going to run, but instead, out of dislike for DeSantis, he decided to endorse Sarah Huckabee Sanders. But DeSantis was also still on the ticket. Who would you go with? Sarah Huckabee Sanders or Ron DeSantis? I did a poll. Go ahead. What would you do, Hard Dickens? What would you take in a case like that?
First, can I ask a question? Would Sanders accept his endorsement?
For
Are they strong
president?
allies?
She's already governor now. Her dad wanted to be president. Yeah, she would take
No,
that
my
chance.
bad. My bad. I was thinking of Cheney. My bad.
No, I'm talking about
I
Sarah
mixed the two.
Huckabee
Okay,
Sanders,
so
governor of Arkansas.
with those, honestly, man, I'm still gonna go with DeSantis.
Okay, all right. Because she is currently governor of Arkansas. You know, of course, her dad was former governor of Arkansas, and he ran for president. My guess is it wouldn't surprise me if she had aspirations to become president. I mean, so
Yeah,
I
and
can easily see Trump.
the last
If
time
for
we
some
had a guy from Arkansas be the president, we had a little bit of a dress issue. You know what I mean? So. I'm just throwing
I
jabs,
get it.
man. Hey, at the end of the day, what everybody needs to realize, and my friends who support Trump need to realize, stop putting so much stock in one person. You know what I mean?
What you're talking about is vote for your issues, not for a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Is that certainly on the right side of the aisle, there's a lot of people that are invested in Trump himself because there's no shortage of people that believe if you put DeSantis in, you're going to get almost the same policies that you get out of Trump, and they are so invested in Trump, the man. I do believe that they put the man over the party and over everything else because I've asked folks, for instance, if Trump decided to become an independent and leave the party. They would follow him wherever he went. I've had people say, "Yeah, I would just follow him." So, yeah, as the human, I think the human element of Trump is what they're following, as opposed to any of his politics.
Right. And, if you really look at, if you are like super hardcore conservative and you look at some of Trump's policies, they kind of go against some of your biggest evangelical shit. You know what I mean? So he's not as conservative as you think. The only thing Trump can really run on that, you take away the pandemic, boom, he took a great economy from Obama and doubled it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like you always made the analogy,
So why do you think they like him so much?
I see. The thing is, I'm not going to speak for 100% of Trump supporters, right? You're going to have X amount, let's say 20%. They just love his bigotry. You know what I mean? They just love his attitude and all that.
Wait. You said they love his bigotry. I mean, most Trump supporters I've talked to will suggest that Trump is not a bigot at all.
Well, I'm here to tell you that there's a substantial portion of people who got kind of lazy eyes and they don't have family trees. They got family circles. There's just you know what I'm saying? And
yes,
then
I do.
Then you've got and those aren't the people we want representing conservatives, right? Then you got another substantial portion of them, of conservatives that are diehard for Trump. They were just like, hey, all I care about is the economy. I don't care about the rest. Your feelings don't matter, blah, blah, blah. And there's some substance to that I think is realistic. And then you've got another section of people who I probably fall into the camp of I voted for him just to do anything but what we've been doing for past my lifetime, right? Just somebody like who can't trace their lineage through other presidents and stuff like that. Just try somebody else. And then when you saw the machine, absolutely go against him, not just the left, but the right. You are not in our club. We want you gone. There's something to be said about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's,
Fair enough. All right, Dickens. Appreciate you coming in here.
Thanks for having me on, man. Have a good night.
Absolutely. And folks, I meant to do the poll a little bit longer, but I did the poll I presented there in which I asked if there was something that led President Trump to not be in the 2020 race. Whether it's health, like I said, criminal charges, or he just got sick of dealing with all of the court cases and decided not to run, but was not a fan of Ron DeSantis and decided to promote Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Got her to run on a ticket. Who would you go with? Sarah Huckabee Sanders or Ron DeSantis? And 56% of you said Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So it does appear as if going against Trump has hurt Ron DeSantis. It definitely appears that way. Because when you look at how much favor he was in regards to the midterms, he won by a larger margin than most other Republicans out there, certainly in terms of governorships. He was very well favored. The only thing that's changed in regards to Ron DeSantis is he's fell ill of Trump. None of his policies have changed. He's not doing anything that the Republicans don't like. It's not like he's pushing gun control or something. The only thing that has changed since the midterms is the attacks from Trump have increased significantly. And when you look at Ron DeSantis' poll numbers, there's no denying that alone is hurting him badly. It is hurting him. Just simply getting attacked from Trump hasn't changed his policies at all. So, to the point where Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's not even running, people are suggesting I'd vote for her. So that shows going up against Trump is a real uphill battle. It's not a good thing even for a Republican. It's not a good thing to take on. So many would suggest that Ron DeSantis is going to run. I strongly believe he is as well. You'll probably within the next month or two have him signing on. He is doing commercials. There are what is it, Never Back Down or something like that is the theme that he's running under. But there's also anti-Ron DeSantis commercials being paid for by the Make America Great Foundation that are suggesting that he's not ready and things like that. So the fight has already kind of began, but Ron DeSantis is not in it yet. Looking in the comments, Trump, Putin plan failed. Go USA. I don't know enough about Huckabee to even give an option. You don't need to know about her. In some cases, it's just if Trump supports him, I support him. There's a hell of a lot of people out there that folks on the right have supported just because Trump said that was the guy. Just like there's a hell of a lot of people out there on the right that have thrown candidates in the garbage because Trump said that's not the guy. How many people that support President Trump that think he's a great politician right now also supported John McCain, was ready to support Jeb Bush, voted for George W. Bush, and they don't like any of those guys now, just simply because Trump told you, stop liking this guy. That was good enough. That was good enough. Most of the Bushes now are despised just because they ran afoul of Trump. Trump tells you this is not the guy to like, and that usually is enough. I mean, Mike Pence was being dragged around rallies and celebrated everywhere he went. Trump would put him on stage. As of January 6th, Trump issued the order, don't like the guy. And that's kind of what has happened. Mike Pence didn't do anything. If you go back to January 5th, January 5, most Republicans like Mike Pence. As of January 6th, most Republicans don't like Mike Pence. That's all it takes. If he says don't like the guy, that has a lot of power to it. If you don't see that, you're just refusing to admit it. Looking in the comments, some folks I still like Pence. Pence was not loyal at the end, says the Don 666. Well, what if he's asking you to be loyal in a way that you believe is criminal? Should you be loyal then? I mean, you want to go out like the two Marines at the end of A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson? If he's giving you an order to perform a code red and you know the order is illegal, do you perform it anyway just out of loyalty? You realize how many people, particularly folks that look like me, are spending time in prison for simply being loyal? I'm not snitching. If being loyal is going to put you at odds, maybe you need to question who's asking you to be loyal to. I mean, it is what it is, but I mean, according to Mike Pence in his own interview, he claims that he actually was going to not certify the election. But he checked with attorneys and folks around him, and they told him, no, you can't do that. So, but he did say he was going to do it. Can I ask you, what did Trump do for you, says Stefan? Personally, I mean, the economy was pretty good under President Trump. He didn't do anything for me personally. I wasn't like I was poor under Obama. I'm not poor now. So he didn't do anything for me personally, but for some folks, their 401k and things like that skyrocketed under him. It didn't make much of a difference for me. I had a job then, I got a job now. Had they gotten Pence, what did that say? Had they gotten to Pence, etc., and unalive them, what then? It would have been blamed on the people that actually did it. I mean, that's what happened with January 6th, where the blame is not falling on Trump, it's falling on the people who did what they did. They're saying, well, Trump didn't tell them to do that. He said go peacefully. It's their own fault. Well, that's what's happening all over the damn place. Fox News paying $750 million is not Trump's fault. They did it on their own. You know, Rudolph Giuliani's he's already lost his law license. He's part of that suit. It's not Trump's fault. He did it on his own. So what you have is a hell of a lot of people that are orbiting around Trump, either losing their life's wealth, some cases their freedom, or whatever the case may be. In Ashley Babbitt's case, her life. And none of it is Trump's fault, even though all of these people are acting on behalf of Trump. But it's not his fault. But they're all doing it for him, and they're paying the farm. They're all buying the farm, trying to do things for him, and it's costing them their careers, their freedom. And like I said, in Ashley Babbitt's case, there was also another dude that tried to take over a FBI office in Cincinnati. These folks are losing everything, but it's not his fault. But if it wasn't for him, none of them would be doing that. So it is what it is. Looking in the comments, Research Convention of States, it already happened. No, that's not true. That's not true. 115K, this is great, man. He respects both sides. Jeremy 8 Baller, yeah. 115K for the size of the audience. I can only give you guys, thank you, ton of gratitude. I normally get something like this on my lunch break last, but the crowds are about 3 times as large. So for you folks that do like civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle, I invite you to join me. We do this Monday through Friday, 11:45 to about 2 o'clock Central Time. I used to start at 11:30, but work duties have made it so I'm coming on about 11:45 a.m. to around 2 p.m. So come on in. Follow the program. It helps out the algorithms. As always, like my guest just stated, I don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. Program is and always will remain MAGA friendly. The fact that I lean left does not stop me, never will stop me from being MAGA friendly. I say it all the time. I believe Republicans, conservatives, particularly MAGA, do not get a fair shake in the media. I wouldn't want somebody banning me because they think I'm ignorant. So I'm going to ban someone else because I don't agree with what they say. I think we all should enjoy First Amendment free speech rights in this country if we are patriots. And no one should be banned for their commentary. We all think somebody else is saying something that sounds stupid. So at the end of the day, everyone should be allowed to speak. Nevertheless, it is that time of evening. I need to go find myself something to eat. I do have to get up early, as many of you folks do as well. We'll follow this further because this convention of the states is not going away. And for you guys who've been listening a while, you certainly heard me playing clips of politicians calling for the potential execution of a mother to be for seeking abortion. You heard me playing clips of Mike Pence. I don't know where the hell. Mike Pence calling for a. Let me stop that. I don't know what the hell's going on. You heard me playing clips of Mike Pence calling for a national abortion ban. Lindsey Graham is another one. So that's why I'm telling you folks, when I push back on the Convention of the States and folks say, well, they're only going to do this or this or this, I'm going to point to the fact that you got politicians out there calling for a hell of a lot more. Here's a good example. Liberals are calling for banning assault rifles. But you got Beto O'Rourke and some folks talking about they'll take every damn thing. You're not going to believe a liberal that says, well, we only want to do this or that. You believe the end goal is to take everything. Well, we believe the same thing coming from this Convention of the States. Fancy prancy. Nothing but love. Thank you. So, anyway, folks, until tomorrow, I'll catch you guys on the Lunch Break Live. It's your boy Tim, the Handsome Liberal. 120,000 likes. Wow. It's an honor. Catch you guys later.